지금 현재 지금 일단 배가 좀 기울어서 침수 중에.
So the passengers up until this point are still being told to stay where they are and do not move. And some of the very first people rescued was the captain and a few of his crew.
He saved his own ass.
He wore ordinary clothes to disguise himself as a passenger.
Oh! Kill him.
Yeah, he's actually one of the most hated people in all of South Korea. There is about 20 minutes of footage from some of the kids' last moments. The irony of all of this, mainstream media starts reporting that all passengers have been rescued. It sounds stranger than fiction. I don't even know how to explain to you.
Did the media try playing into it too? To hide it? Look at all these parents, man, scared.
우리만 따뜻하고 뭐하냐고요. 애들이 쉬운데.
진짜 가보자. 기자들도 당신도 타고 현장을 한번 가보자.
It's literally the Korean death mall. Hello, YouTube. In today's video, we are back with Rotten Mango to watch some more disturbing, tragic, sad, true crime. The video we're going to be watching today is called The Sewol Ferry Tragedy. Coward captain left 350 students to die in a sinking ship. So yes, most of her videos are pretty sad already. This one seems like it's going to be even more so. So yeah, just a fair warning. I don't even think these are college students. I think these are high school or maybe even middle. No, I think it's got to be high school, right? High school students. So yeah, very, very young victims.
Bada bing, bada bing.
This is going to be a long one, and it's going to be a tough one, okay? We're talking about the Sewol tragedy, the sinking of the Sewol boat. Now, two 16-year-old students from Danwon High School, they made headlines. There were some rumors that they were
I'm already scared. We've heard very young ages already, 16 years old.
dating. There were some rumors that said, no, they were just close friends. But most of the students that knew both of them personally said they barely knew each other. I don't even think that they had a class together. Most kids said that was the extent of their interaction, just passing each other in the hallways. Yet the two of them found each other alone in a room, in a boat, terrified. I mean, they're watching the water starting to pool on the ground, and they didn't know what to do. I'm sure they were frantic. I'm sure that there were a lot of things going on in their minds. I'm sure that they were trying to comfort each other. But eventually, everything goes black. A civilian diver would later find both of their bodies alone in that room, and their life jacket cords were still tied together.
Oh my, I told y'all, man, this is not going to be an easy one to get through. Their life jackets were tied together. I mean, yeah, in school, you meet a lot of people that you're not really that close with. You just share classes, like you're not best friends. But I mean, in moments like this, it's a really unfortunate way to do it. But I mean, this probably did bond a lot of people because, you know, in the face of tragedy, humans get really close to each other.
He remembers how he had to separate them because he physically couldn't bring up two bodies at once. And he recognized that in their last moments, maybe these two kids knew each other, maybe they didn't, but in their last moments, they didn't want to be alone. So they tied the strings of their life jackets together till the very end. And he said, you know, I started crying thinking that I didn't want to separate them, but I had to. He said it was one of the hardest rescue dives that he had ever endured in his entire life. He would never forget some of the stuff that was seen. Other students from the same high school.
No, see, there you go. That's exactly the point I was making earlier. They would probably only see each other walking by in the halls. But when you're in those final moments, especially as a kid, you don't want to be alone, dude. Dying is scary. So it's like we all just want somebody to comfort us in our final moments.
Danwon High School faced similar fates. A female student was seen throwing a chair at a window, a glass window, and she's hurling this chair with as much force as she can muster. She would go as far back as she could, and then she would throw it with all of her strength, and it would just clunk onto the window and fall back down. She wasn't angry, but there was just pure desperation in her eyes. She could see on the very other side of this window were rescuers. They saw her, she saw them, and they did nothing but stare at her.
What?
We're going to get into it. I mean, this rescue, I don't even think you can call it a rescue. She realized that these people, these rescuers, they're not here to save her. All the people that she thought would be responsible for her safety, the captain of the boat, the rescue teams from the Korean National Coast Guard, they all abandoned her. They were watching her through the window, and it was very clear to her in her last moments that she was being left to die. Imagine these are the very last realizations that you have in your life.
That's what I was going to say right now. Imagine in your final moments, you realize the people that you just saw, you were hoping were going to save you. They're not. Like, they're not going to save you. They're about to ditch you.
2014, the Sewol ferry capsized off the coast of South Korea. There were 476 passengers. Most of them were high school students around the age of 16 years old. from the same high school. They were on their way to Jeju Island when their boat started sinking on one side. And when a giant boat that carries 500 passengers, when it starts sinking, it's not something that goes unnoticed, nor is it something that happens very quickly. Soon, nearby boats and vessels and even countries start giving out lending helping hands. The Japanese Coast Guard asked if South Korea required assistance because they were right there. The US Navy had a massive vessel stationed nearby and offered to rush to the scene to help with rescue efforts. South Korea denied all of their requests. They told news outlets that they had everything under control, that they were operating a full-scale rescue operation, and that majority of the passengers had already been rescued off the boat and they're being rushed to safety.
Wow.
South Korea told the world, hey, guys, these are our kids, and we're going to do everything to save our kids. But that could not have been further from the truth. The Sewol Ferry tragedy in South Korea would lead to the deaths of over 250 high school students, over 300 lives in total. It would lead to the president being impeached, the prime minister resigning, the Korean Coast Guard being disbanded, multiple high-profile arrests, a billionaire suspicious suicide, a helicopter crash, hunger strikes, and a vice principal of a high school found hanging from a tree in the woods, dead.
Holy shit, all stemming from this? I mean, rightfully so, though. I mean, if she's making it sound like it was a very negligent case, like people didn't give a fuck, like people, like it was like a bunch of lazy people not wanting to get involved. The president got impeached. God damn.
So let's get into the tragedy. There's a South Korean news outlet called Newstapa, which you're like, I've never heard of this. I've heard of like SBS and NBC. Newstapa worked closely with the victims' families and their attorneys from the get-go. They had so much information on this tragedy that was being suppressed by mainstream news. They were the only ones that were standing up when everyone else was silent. It's estimated and kind of surmised that without them, most of the evidence, most of these testimonies would have been completely lost. They would have never been used. So that was my primary source because they worked directly with the families to get the truth out there. And, this isn't just a tragedy. It's a full-scale cover-up with the president, the most powerful person in that country, working with the media. So please go show support to Newstapa if you can. And with that being said, let's get into it. The parents of Tanwon High School are getting bombarded with calls. Phone calls, text messages, voice memos, pictures are being sent to them. And it was like a parent's worst nightmare. Think about your 16-year-old kid aboard a boat on a school field trip, and they're sending you cryptic text messages like, Mom, I'm sending you this because I'm scared I might not be able to say it later, but I love you.
Bro, if I got that kind of message as a parent, I'm shitting bricks. I'm screaming, I'm crying. Like even right now, like you don't have kids, right? Imagine getting a text like that from your mom or your dad or your sibling. Oh, dude.
You're like, what's going on? You're like on a field trip. Another kid sent, hope we can meet again alive. Another student said, if I've wronged any of you guys, please forgive me. The parents start freaking out, but they're told by their kids that, hey, Mom, Dad, the boat is sinking, but rescue efforts are on their way. I think everyone's got it under control. They told us to stay in our cabins and put on our life jackets. Many parents told their kids, okay, well, stick with your friends. Don't be alone. Don't wander out alone. And good, that's good. They have everything under control. Just keep calm and do what they say. Do what they say. If you listen to them, everything will be okay. These words will haunt the parents forever. A lot of them couldn't even face living with the guilt, because so many children would die from listening to what they said, from listening to what the captain told them to do. The ferry sank April 16th of 2014, but the story starts the day before on April...
God, bro. I mean, I want to sympathize with the parents like so bad because that's the only thing you can do in that situation. But because that's what ended up getting the children killed, the incompetent captain, the staff, those parents are going to feel guilt for the rest of their life.
The ferry sank April 16th of 2014, but the story starts the day before on April 15th of 2014. So the students at Tanwon High School, this is like their annual trip to Jeju Island. They considered it a rite of passage, like a tradition for everyone. Every single high school student it's the sophomore class. They're so excited for this because for one, their parents aren't going to be there. It's just their class and a couple of teachers. And I mean, just imagine the adrenaline and all this planning that goes into something like this. Any inconvenience that day that would have otherwise bothered the crap out of them, it didn't bother them anymore. I mean, they were waiting in line for hours at the port of Incheon, which is also where the international airport is. So Jeju Island is like the Hawaii of South Korea, and Incheon is actually on the northern side of South Korea.
Bro, I want to go there so bad. To Jeju Island?
And they would get on a boat, go all the way down the left coast of South Korea, and then get into the ocean, the Yellow Sea a little bit, and then they'll hit a tiny little island called Jeju Island. It is the biggest destination spot for South Koreans. It's beautiful. It's like a cultural mecca. There's so much, there's a lot of fun stuff to do there. So these kids are like, yes, Jeju Island. Even when their ferry is delayed for 2.5 hours because of foggy conditions, they're like, that's fine. Are you kidding? Nothing is going to ruin this trip. This is the best trip of my life.
We haven't even gotten to like the meat of this video. It's already sad because, I mean, these are just kids excited to go experience a little bit of freedom for the first time.
It's a 300-mile trip by ferry. It takes 14 hours. But thankfully, they would be going down the coast of Korea most of the time, the left side of the coast.
They
So
just
they're
wanted
going
to
to
have
have cell
fun, bro.
service, you know, and it was outfitted like a cruise ship, meaning that there's dorm rooms with bunk beds. There's communal showers, a convenience store, a cafeteria, you know, which for high schoolers, this sounds like a blast. Because they had cell service, a lot of them were able to reach out to their families, and those very phones would later document some of their last moments on board. There were 476 people on board the ferry, including the crew. Now, they board the ferry at 9 p.m. They were supposed to board 2.5 hours earlier, but like I said, a delay. It's not that bad. I mean, the ferry is filled with 325 high school students, 14 teachers, 29 crew members, and about 100 or so other passengers. So these passengers are going to Jeju either on their own for vacation, or there were a lot of truck drivers.
Wait, all of those people were on the ship? All of those people?
So they go and they get cargo off from this same boat, and they drive it around Jeju, then they get their truck back onto the boat and come back to Seoul, and it's like a back and forth, right? So
Sounds like a huge boat.
oh yeah, it's a massive boat. Here, can you pass me my iPad? I'm gonna show you pictures.
So you're saying there's not only people, but also like vehicles on there.
Oh, so many vehicles, and it's actually a cargo ship. This is a cargo ship that loads.
Oh, whoa, I did not know that. I thought it was just gonna be a normal passenger ship. That doesn't even sound safe. I would not get on that boat. I'm already scared of the ocean, but if you tell me that the boat I'm gonna be on, if you tell me the boat's gonna be carrying big ass vehicles, trucks, cars, all that shit, oh hell no.
The Sewol ferry, if you want to get technical, is 75% profits from cargo movement and 25% profits from carrying of passengers. Most of the pictures you're going to find
Yeah.
now are of it sinking, but here is it before it sank.
Oh wow, it's like a
Cruise ship.
Yeah, like a cruise ship.
Yes,
Wow.
it's massive. So, I mean, a lot of these truck drivers were not very excited that they got onto the ferry with a bunch of high schoolers, but these same truck drivers would help try and save a lot of these students later. So it's not like the high school bought out the entire ferry, nor was it a ferry that belonged to the school. There's a lot of people on here. So all 476 people, including the crew, they board the ferry and they start their journey. Now, the night of the 15th was pretty calm. Okay, so this is a picture that the kids posted or taken by one of the victims.
Oh, I have a sibling too that's in high school. I mean, seeing pictures like this, it reminds me of him.
Just of them boarding during the foggy night. And it just looks like they're so excited. And nothing climactic happens, which is good. Dinner is served, there's fireworks that are launched from the deck, and there's pictures of that too. At night, the passengers, they all go to sleep in their cabins. Now, the high school was pretty good about booking rooms on one level for all of the boy students, and then for the girl students upstairs, right? So they had different levels. They all go to sleep around 11-ish, and the next morning, at around 11 a.m., they should be arriving in Jeju Island. So it's like you go to sleep, you wake up, you have breakfast, and 11 a.m. you're at Jeju. They're so excited for this. Now, 7:30 a.m. is when everything starts to slowly unravel. Helmsman Cho and third mate Park, so these are two of the people that are going to be steering the boat now. They take over for the shift so the overnight crew can go into their cabins and take a nap or go to sleep. The helmsman is the person who's going to be steering and driving the ship, if you will. So Helmsman Cho, he's at the bridge, which is basically like the cockpit of the boat, and he's, doing all these commands, and the captain was off duty in his room.
Okay, so the bridge is the driving room.
Yes.
Okay.
30 minutes later, around 8 a.m., breakfast is served in the cafeteria for all the passengers, the crew, and anybody else. 8:20 a.m., autopilot is switched off to manual steering. Autopilot off, manual steering on. Just 7 minutes later, the Sewol is sailing through the Mengol Channel. Now, the Mengol Channel is very pertinent to this story. There are other routes to take to get to Jeju without going through this particular channel. I mean, it really only saves like 7 miles off of your trip, but this channel it's not some sort of urban legend where ships go missing and it's like a terrifying place. It is a commonly used route, but it's not calm. It's not that safe. It's a little unpredictable. It actually has one of the most rapid and unpredictable currents in the Korean peninsula. It's got these tidal shifts, meaning that you have to be super, super careful when you're passing through this channel. Some areas of the channel have rock hazards. Some random areas have shallow waters. But Sewol was traveling through a part where it was pretty calm. Conditions were relatively calm. Even CCTV footage shows kids and truck drivers socializing on deck, finishing up their breakfast. Most of the kids were still asleep in their cabins, if I'm being honest, because, it's very early. As of 8:40 a.m., everything is going well. Students are busy, passengers are busy avoiding the students, crew members are busy working. Within 9 minutes, everything would change. 8:49 a.m., two crew members that were in charge of steering the ship decide to manually steer the ship 15 degrees to the left, which is a well-known fact to all crew members aboard this Sewol that they cannot steer this particular vessel more than 5 degrees in any direction. Mainly because of the amount of cargo it was holding. So why did this Sewol ferry even start to sink? This Sewol was known, like I said, to be a cargo ship. 25% of their profits were just from passengers. So being incredibly irresponsible and greedy, they would almost every single time load way more cargo than was legally allowed. It caused massive dangerous conditions.
Greed every single fucking time. We just watched the Korean death mall case and how greed led the owners of a big mall to overlook safety protocols in order to save a little bit of money. And now we're seeing it here as well. This cargo ship wanted to maximize profits and be like, hey, let's bring on a bunch of passengers because that just means more money. Oh, and we can also be a cargo ship and load a bunch of vehicles and stuff like that. Oh, hell yeah. They had no business doing that. And then you take that big ass, heavy ass boat and then you want to navigate it through chaotic waters? Come on.
It caused massive dangerous conditions on the boat. And when they made this sharp turn, which is supposed to only be 5 degrees to the left, they went 15 degrees. And none of this cargo, none of these cars, they had almost 200 vehicles on this cargo ship. All of them slammed to the left because none of them are being tied down. Side note, when you read official reports, it'll read that the boat
Wait, what did you just say?
None of them are being tied down.
The vehicles aren't even tied down, bro. So they're gonna be wiggling around and shit. That's gonna fuck up with the balance of the boat too.
Side note, when you read official reports, it'll read that the boat was listing 30 degrees to port. Now, what that means, and this is from online research, I'm not like a boat girl, I'm actually terrified of cruises, but listing, when a boat is listing, it means that it's leaning to the left. Not going to the left, but leaning to the left. When it says listing to port, it means to the left. When it says listing to starboat, it means listing to the right.
You said listing how much degree?
30 degrees.
30 degrees.
Yes,
That's a lot.
30 degrees. And not to confuse it with trimming, okay? Just a little quick, I guess, boat lesson, but trimming is when the ship tips forward or backward. And then rolling is when a ship is moving from side to side trying to find balance. So these are terms that you'll see a lot in the official reports. At one point, it was rolling to try and find balance, but ultimately, it was listing to the left, 30 degrees. None of this is great, but 30 degrees list doesn't mean capsizing. It doesn't automatically mean it. And it gets technical, but I'm going to try and describe it as best as possible. If the cargo had been tied down, it probably might have balanced the boat back out. The boat might have rolled and then eventually become stable again. Now, even if it didn't become stable again, there is something called ballast water. Okay, this is going to get very technical. All boats want to have a low center of gravity. The parts closest to the water needs to be the center of gravity. So did you know most boats are filled with water? It sounds counterintuitive, but it's something called ballast water, which is just to bring the center of gravity, right?
Yep.
Physics, chat. Physics. This job has to be hard. The people that build boats, really think about it. These boats are fucking huge. Like, have you seen boats up close? Look, that's a human right there. My mouse is on him. That's a person. Look how big that shit is, dude. I mean, yeah, imagine how hard it is to build. We made this huge 100-ton ball of metal and steel able to float in the water like that. Don't even get me started on this image. This low-key pisses me off. Like, that should not be possible, but it is possible. This big ass hunk of metal is just floating in the water like that easily, and it's because of physics.
But it's something called ballast water, which is just to bring the center of gravity, right?
Yeah.
They had like no ballast water. The center of gravity was at the top of the boat.
Why? Oh, so they can load more cars.
Yes. So there's no way that this boat
my
is gonna fix itself, balance itself out. No way. So all of this cargo, all of these vehicles slam to the left, and this boat is not going to balance out. This boat is 100% going to capsize, meaning it's going to sink. Now, the water is very cold in April. It was about 54 degrees Fahrenheit. It only takes 10 minutes for you to start feeling the effects of hypothermia. You're not going to die in 10 minutes, but most of the time. But you start feeling loss of dexterity. Your fingers go numb. You're starting to, your teeth are clattering. And full-blown hypothermia happens after about 2 hours. So right at this moment, the boat it leans, and the engines of the boat are cut. The off-duty captain Lee Chun-seok, he starts running. He's like, I gotta figure out what's going on.
Oh, is this the fucker that like gets them all killed? He saves his own life.
Some crew members also run to the bridge of the boat, and they're like, what's going on? Now, they're trying to assess the situation. And when a boat this size starts to list or even starts sinking, it's not like an earthquake. Not every single passenger is going to jerk up and go, we need to evacuate this boat. It feels dangerous, but it almost feels like turbulence on a plane. You feel like, okay, I need to wait it out and it's going to be fine. You never really hit turbulence and you're like, this plane is going down. So that's kind of how everyone was feeling except for the crew because they knew better. 8:52 a.m., just 2 minutes after the boat starts leaning to the left about 30 degrees, an emergency call is made by a student, Choi Taok-ha. Choi reported that the Sewol was starting to capsize. He was the first 911 call.
Oh, really? A student was the first person to actually notice and make a call. Jesus, that makes the staff look even more pathetic.
Choi reported that the Sewol was starting to capsize. He was the first 911 call. And that the water was coming into the decks. He's like, something's going on. I'm on the decks and this is dangerous. He was one of the few that understood the severity of the situation. And he was probably confused because he could hear ringing through the PA system, like the intercom system, the speakers on the boats. Do not move. Just stay where you are. It's dangerous if you move. Stay where you are. Every single student and passenger was told to stay put. And now, all hell breaks loose. Crew members are calling so many different people. There's the Jeju Vessel Traffic Service, Korean Coast Guard, Jeju Coast Guard, Mokpo Coast Guard Station, their company executives. There's so many different people that this communication system is just bonkers. The fact that they don't have a system in place of like, if an emergency happens, this is who I call, is crazy to me. Nobody was getting anything done. So much time initially is wasted in these key moments. At 9:07 a.m., the crew confirmed to authorities the ferry is capsizing and they confirmed that they needed help from the Korean Coast Guard. They stated the ship's angle made evacuation impossible. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Allegedly, none of these authorities knew that there were 500 passengers on this, well, close to 500 passengers on this boat. That's what they claim. I don't believe it for a second, but that's what they claim.
Wait, who claimed that? The
All the
police?
Coast Guards, yeah. They're like, no one told us. We just thought it was.
That looks so horrible. We didn't know there was that many lives on this boat. Either you guys are lying, or even if you're not lying, I mean, that just makes the communication look terrible between you guys.
The crew, we thought it was a cargo ship. Get out of here, because the Sewol was well known to be a passenger cargo ship. So they say the ferry is about to roll over, meaning it was listing to the left, but because it was taking in so much water, it was practically bonk flat onto the left, and now it was going to flip over and capsize.
Wow.
So it's not even sinking just to the bottom like this. It's going to be completely inverted. The bottom is going to be the top. The Coast Guard tells the crew on Sewol to inform any passengers, if there are any, to put on their life jackets. But they just say, oh, sorry, our PA system is down. It wasn't down. It's just bizarre. Okay.
So why did they lie?
Yeah, so it was like down at one point, but then it comes back up, and then a customer service rep is like playing that, or like a customer's relations crew member is playing the message of like, do not move. There was like no communication. Now the Coast Guard is like, okay, well, if it's down, then go personally tell the passengers. The crew member is like, okay, I'm gonna do that. He walks out of the command center and walks around a bit and comes back being like, I did that. He did not do that. He just lied. He just blatantly lied to authorities and said, yeah, I told all the passengers to put on their life jackets.
What?
Yeah.
Do they not understand what the hell's going on?
The Coast Guard.
In a situation like that, you gotta, even if it makes you look terrible in the middle of an investigation, you gotta be honest, bro. Like, why are you lying to save your own ass when you know you killed that many students? Like, the guilt would eat me alive.
Tries to tell Captain Lee that you need to start thinking and acting fast. They have deployed a vessel. There was a patrol vessel nearby that was coming in about 10 minutes. There was a helicopter that would get there in about 1 minute. And Lee said, yeah, that's not enough to save everybody. Like, there's more passengers than that. Because one helicopter, you could save maybe a dozen people max. No, maybe like 6, 7 people. Keep this part in mind. Because later, everyone goes and says, oh, when he said passengers, we thought maybe a couple of passengers.
Wow. I mean, right now, everything falls on the captain, right?
Oh, yeah. But
It's going down. Like, what are you doing? Every second, what are you
Yes,
doing?
Exactly. And you're going to die when you find out what he was doing. So the passengers up until this point are still being told to stay where they are and do not move. And some of the very first people rescued was the captain and a few of his crew.
He saved his own ass. What a bitch.
The captain was rescued by one of the small Coast Guard boats, and he wore ordinary clothes to disguise himself as a passenger.
Oh, kill him. Kill him. Nah, bitch. Selfish prick.
Once he was rescued, he made no attempts, and he actually was rescued, I don't want to say before the chaos, because right now is chaos, but he was rescued at a point where it wasn't just utter all hell breaks loose and there are people drowning and dying right now. He's like, okay, well, I think chaos is about to hit, so I'm gonna leave.
That's so fucking despicable.
Yes.
Even Stephanie's husband is cussing. That's how fucked up that is.
Yeah, he's actually one of the most hated people in all of South Korea. He disguised himself as a passenger, and once he was rescued, this is even more despicable. He gets on the Coast Guard vessel, and he doesn't let anyone know that he is the captain and that he has vital information that would help them in rescuing passengers. He doesn't relay any information to them when time and information is the most important thing to save lives. He made no attempts to tell them how many passengers, where they were, what the PA system was doing. He did none of that. He didn't tell them that they were being told to stay in their rooms where they were effectively trapped inside this sinking boat. None of that. There is about 20 minutes of footage from some of the kids' last moments. And one of the biggest, I guess, video files.
No, are we going to be shown that footage? I don't know if I can handle that.
That were actually shared by the father of the victim. And he said that he wanted the world to know what actually happened to these kids. So it was filmed by a Park Soo-hyung and Kim Dong-hyup. They were both 16, best friends. They were both on the level 3 of the boat, which is where most of the male students were dorming. These rooms had bunk beds, about 4 boys per room. Soo-hyun and Dong-hyup, they were 2 of the last ones to start the day. They're hanging out in the cabin, sitting on the edge of their cabin, like bunk bed, when they suddenly feel the boat lurch to the left. And at first, everyone's confused, but like I said, it feels like airplane turbulence. They're not freaking out yet. Then they start overhearing the speakers starting blaring. Do not move, stay put. It's dangerous if you move, just stay where you are. If you're watching the video on YouTube or Spotify, I'm going to play you a clip of the video. You can actually hear the PA system in the background repeating, stay where you are, over and over again.
아 기울어졌어. 야나좀 살려줘.
That's, dude, I know nothing is gonna happen literally in this video. Like, we're not gonna see a kid pass away or anything. What makes this video even darker, their death after this video is inevitable. All of these kids, because the captain had just gotten rescued after he had disguised himself as a passenger.
이거 상황이 아니야. 이거 실제라고. 와 기울 줄은 상상도 못했다. 이게 뭔 상황인지 모르겠어. 구명조끼 입으라는 거 침몰되고 있다는 소리 아니야?
So the boys on the 3rd floor are freaking out. Some students who were on the deck come to the cabins to let everyone know to put on their life jackets. The video footage from these students are stitched together to be about 20 minutes, but it's probably the most raw footage I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's not necessarily the most emotional in the typical sense, meaning these kids aren't crying, they're not banging on the windows to get out, but you just see how real and relatable the situation is. Like, the way that these kids, at first, they don't think the ship is going to sink, because who thinks that? You know, they're kind of joking around, but they're putting faith in the adults and the captain and the PA system, and they're kind of playing around with each other, and I find that it's a way that they're coping with it. And then eventually you hear that humor kind of dissipate, and it gets replaced by them saying, I don't want to die, but they're still trying to keep this almost cool front in front of their friends. But near the end, you can hear and see most of them start to feel very, very scared.
Stephanie just addressed what I just said. What makes that whole video so eerie, disturbing, is that you know what comes next. And that is the most raw video we've seen of people's last moments. And I'm not even kidding. I think I would probably behave in a similar way. Like, that's the most real look at people's last moments. It's people's last moments in a death that isn't sudden. It's not like a gunshot to the head like we see in some cases. It's a slow process that's happening, and it puts you in their shoes almost.
At the end, you can hear and see most of them start to feel very, very scared. You hear students say things like, will the water really leak in? The shaking is getting serious. It's tilting so much this way, I can't even move. This is getting ridiculous. I want to get off. I really want to leave. Am I going to die? It's not going to go down any further, right? Like, what the hell is going on? Hurry and rescue us. What's wrong with these people? I don't understand what's happening. If they're telling us to wear life vests, does that mean the ship is sinking?
엄마한테 전화해볼까? 어떻게 없어요? 깨한 게 없어요. 그래 일단 엄마 아빠 사랑해요. 내 동생 내 동생만은 절대로 가스라에 가지 되기지만 알지? 제발 살려줘. 엄마 사랑해요. 아빠 사랑해요.
Oh, what did that one kid say? Mom, Dad, what about my little brother? Don't ever let him go on a school trip. Like, see, even in his last moments, he's looking out for his brother.
절대로 가스라에 가지 되기지만 알지? 제발 살려줘. 엄마 사랑해요.
Oh my God.
아빠 사랑해요. 둘 다 사랑해요. 센세 어딨어?
Near the end, one of the students even screams, let me live. Who's going to take care of my mom and sister? Let me live. And now all throughout this, you hear the PA system in the back. Dear passengers, a guidance announcement. Those of you who are inside the ship, please do not move. Try to find a pole you can hold on to. The kids also note that they start smelling something very bad. They wonder out loud if it's gas because it smells like boiled eggs, which is typically a gas leak scent.
Who's talking in the system?
Just, it's like an automated message.
oh,
Yeah.
nobody's even like,
Oh yeah, because the captain's gone, bro. Before the captain rescued himself, like got his ass saved and left the kids behind, he probably just hit the announcement button and then dipped.
Oh yeah, no. Most of the crew were like, bye.
here's a button, they press a button,
Yeah.
and then they dipped.
And it's very heartbreaking because you just hear that playing while these kids are repeating, we don't want to die. So more phone calls were placed between passengers and police. The students are even telling the police, please, the ship is sinking. I don't want to die. We've been told to stay put. We're not supposed to move. Another student can be heard saying, really, once the water starts coming in, we really got to get out. And another student says, no, like it says we shouldn't move. There are a few things to gather from these students' last moments. They're trying to stay strong. They're trying to keep each other company. And if you listen and you speak Korean and you listen to the whole clip, a lot of these kids are thinking about their families, or a lot of them are asking, wait, has anybody checked on the girls on the other floor? Or has anyone checked on the teachers? Like trying to see if their friends and even their teachers are okay. Some of them were joking around that this was the Titanic and sang the theme song, which I saw a lot of like old people be like, what's wrong with kids? But that's how they cope. They
No,
followed,
yeah, I would do that 100%.
they followed the rules. They followed the advice of the adults who they believed were doing the right thing. So they stayed put. They trusted the captain. Even teachers were going around dorm to make sure that these kids didn't go because they thought, again, it was in the best interest and the safety and welfare of the children for them to stay put. One student texted his mom, please, if I don't survive, Mom and Dad, I love you. Another one texted his parents, Mom, Dad, younger sister, I love you guys so much. And please don't ever let my little sister go on a school trip ever. These are some of the kids' last words. So key points. They're told to stay in their cabin. They're told not to evacuate or come to the deck. They also noticed that some of the zippers on many of the life vests were broken. Not only that, but one of the boys said, I just discovered something really horrible. This life vest says it was made in 1994. Here, look, it's
Bruh.
written in the back. Made in 1994.
There
So a
were
lot-
some busted ass, old ass life vests.
The videos were captured on Kim Dong-yeop's phone, and he would not make it out alive. So while this is the situation inside the boat, mainstream media at the same time, like imagine this is happening at the same time. Please, just the irony of all of this. Mainstream media starts reporting that all passengers have been rescued. It sounds stranger than fiction. I don't even know how to explain to you what they thought that they were going to get out of this, what the politicians
Did the media try playing into it too to hide it? What?
thought was going to happen when this all came out to be lies and false. But it's insane. If this happened in a movie, it'd be unbelievable. There were reports that all passengers were rescued. Tanwon High School parents let out a sigh of relief. Oh my God, okay. That cryptic text, my child is fine. They're probably not responding to my texts or my calls because they're probably on like a Coast Guard vessel right now and they're busy, but that's fine. They start
Oh,
noticing.
that's so sick and twisted. They're playing with these parents' emotions, with these families' emotions. They just got off a call with their child, you know, hearing the kid panicking, crying, saying they don't want to die, hearing the kid say, I love you, I might not make it home. And then on the TV, you get a sigh of relief because they just reported that everybody was saved. And then they're gonna receive the news inevitably again afterwards saying, oh, by the way, guys, they actually didn't make it. All of them died. I hope all of these families filed big fat lawsuits and got hella money.
Something fishy though. They're trying to get in contact with their children, no responses. They contact other parents and they're like, no, we also haven't gotten any
Emotional
When they
damage.
watch the news very
God.
carefully, the numbers aren't adding up. And it's not like some sort of conspiracy, but the government would report that they rescued all the passengers. Then a little bit later, they'd be like, okay, well, we have rescued majority of the passengers. Then it'd be like, oh, and these are not the exact figures, but it would be something like, we rescued 200 passengers. And then later they'd be like, we rescued 150 passengers. So which one is it? Who are you rescuing? How do you unrescue people? You're a powerful nation and you can't even do basic arithmetic? Like, what's going on? So frustrated, the parents, they start traveling to Chindo Island. Now, Chindo Island is the closest island to where the crash happened. Not Jeju Island. Chindo Island is very close to
Money wouldn't heal it. No, yeah, I mean, but it's still something, you know, at least give them an easier life financially, you know. No amount of money is going to be able to bring back your loved one, but I mean, shit, it's the least you can fucking do, you know.
the southern tip of South Korea. Jeju Island, you'd have to go further out into the Yellow Sea. The parents all decide to use the Chindo gym to be their coordination place. And I truly don't even know how to explain what I'm going to say next. But first of all, the people organizing this gym to make sure everyone is in the right place were the parents of the children on the boat. They arrived, there's no organization, it's chaos, so they take it upon themselves to make sure everything is organized. Not the Coast Guards, not the local officials, the police, the parents take charge. The rescue teams had these giant whiteboards on the front with a list of names of passengers who have been rescued. And of course, parents are flocking and praying and wishing that it's their child on the list.
Oh my God. And that's a parent right there. Lightheaded, probably passed out from like panicking about their kid, about their grandchild. Look at all these parents, man, scared.
And of course, parents are flocking and praying and wishing that it's their child on the list. But these families are getting frustrated. One parent grabs a mic and says, "Here, I can clearly see my younger sister's name on the list of survivors. It says she was rescued, but my sister isn't here, so where is my sister? Who on earth made this list?"
여기 명단에 분명히 제 동생이 있어요. 여기 명단에 분명히 제 동생이 있는데 동생이 여기 없어요. 지금 명단 누가 작성하셨냐고요?
So these are authorities being like, here's all the people we rescued. And the parents are like, we don't believe you because where are our children then?
상황이라도 좀 알았으면 좋겠는데 상황을 지금 모르니까 지금 불안해서 어떻게 할 수가 없네.
Another parent screamed, please, just get us a boat so we can save our kids. Get us a boat. We don't care how much it costs. I will pay for it.
저희 가서 우리 좀 구하게 배를 하나 구해주세요. 배를 하나 구해주세요. 전부 다 돈 얼마든지 드릴 테니까.
최선을 다하겠습니다.
배도 안 보인대요. 경찰들만 놀고 있고 아무도 없대요 지금. 잠수도 없고 지금 그런 상황이에요.
지금 뭐 얘기로는 지금 뭐 시신도 많이 꺼내가고 하는데 좀 가요.
Another one said, I feel like the parents, including myself, are here waiting for our children to die. We want an answer from the person in charge. Why are orders not going through and nothing's being done? You guys are clearly lying and kicking responsibility to others. Another parent screams, let's all go together. Let's all go together. The parents are rushed to the harbor, and to show you how they still had this unfailing hope of a parent, they all grabbed blankets on the way out. They said when their kid gets saved, they want to make sure that they have something to keep them warm. They all go to the harbor and they wait. There's nothing that they can do. Side note, police were lined up at the edge of the harbor to prevent family members from going into the water, whether to try and rescue a kid or...
Wait, could they see the boat from there? That's even more heartbreaking though. Like as a parent, you're literally like you see the boat that your child is on sinking and the only thing standing between you and them is like this body of water. I would swim that. I would be daring enough to fucking swim that shit for my kid.
To prevent family members from going into the water, whether to try and rescue a kid or in a desperate attempt. A parent screamed, I want to jump in the water with them. My loved one is under the water. Anger is not enough. If I don't have my younger child, I'm going to jump in the water thinking about my child in the water. How can I as a parent continue to live, eat, and drink? I hate myself. Someone near a mom tried to put one of the blankets on one of the moms because it was so cold. And she cried, what good is it staying warm when the kids are freezing out there? They're freezing. What good is it for us to stay warm? Not a single government official was at that harbor. Nobody responded to the family's frustrations or questions.
헬기 탔다길래 난 구조되는 줄 알았어 언니. 우리만 따뜻하면 뭐하냐고요. 애들이 치운데 우리만 따뜻하면 뭐하냐고.
Wait, this is nighttime?
Yeah,
It's been a day?
it's been a day. We're gonna go back into the rescue. Just you wait.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so again, I mean, the families resorted to asking reporters on what's going on, but most of the reporters at the harbor at this point were mainstream media reporters. The only ones there that actually cared about helping the parents was Newstapa, which is why I think a lot of parents continue to work with Newstapa. These are some of the most devastating clips I've seen. I mean, just the desperation in these parents, like their grief, their worry, their anger, and so many of them it's a lot.
진짜 가보자. 기자들도 당신도 타고 현장을 한번 가보자. 제대로 된 정보를 여러분한테 좀 알려주라는 얘기야, 내 얘기는.
So let's talk about the rescue, because you mentioned, like, how is this nighttime? So the rescue that government officials and media said was a success was not a success at all. The Coast Guard helicopter was dispatched to the sinking ferry at 9:10 a.m. They arrive at around 9:30 a.m. Two rescuers come down and rescue 6 passengers via helicopter. And these passengers were, like, on the deck. So they're, like, waving. They're visible. They're outside. Now, at 9:32, the helicopter starts communicating with the Blue House. And the Blue House is like the White House. And they keep asking, is the situation serious? The helicopter says, the ferry is...
Also, the Blue House in Korea is like the White House here in America. So, like, that's where the president lives.
...is like the White House. And they keep asking, is the situation serious? The helicopter says, the ferry is tilted and currently being flooded. It hasn't sunken yet. Can you please send over a video? Now, this is being heavily criticized because time is of the essence. Such an urgent incident is taking place, and really, I don't know what to say because it casually feels like the Blue House is saying, picture it didn't happen. And sure, maybe videos can help them get a better understanding of what's going on, but if this is the government responsible for running a literal company, they better be more competent than this. They keep calling back to the helicopter, not giving commands, not doing a full-scale command center operation, but going, did you send the videos yet? Just nonstop.
Dude, what the? Yeah, what? Dude, I stuttered right there so bad. Because that is so unprofessional. I mean, the White House of South Korea is conducting themselves like your manager at a fucking McDonald's or something. Like, yo, did you send like the videos yet? You have my number, right? You have my iMessage? You have me on Instagram? Like, bro, like send me it. Like, I need to know like what the fuck's happening. You're the fucking government. Send out your people. That just shows how little you care.
Not giving commands, not doing a full-scale command center operation, but going, did you send the videos yet? Just nonstop, over and over and over again, wasting time asking for videos. And what's even crazier is that the helicopter is like, well, we didn't want to take any videos in case it gets leaked. But the Blue House is like, it's fine, text it to my phone.
지금 현재 지금 일단 배가 좀 기울어서 침수 중이고 아직 침몰은 안 됐고요.
This is the conversation between the government and like the Coast Guards.
지금 현재 지금 일단 배가 좀 기울어서 침수 중이고 아직 침몰은 안 됐고요.
어디 저기 카메라 나오는 건 없죠?
네, 아직 없습니다. 예.
현지 영상 있습니까? 혹시 나오죠? 현지 영상 볼 수 있는 거 있습니까?
본인 내 외부로 나가지 않아 어떤데 이게
제가 보고 때문에 그런데 영상으로 봐주고 핸드폰 보여주겠습니까?
The Blue House is basically like, okay, well, we're going to hang up. Just call us back when you get the footage. Oh, this is like the smallest thing the Blue House messes up. So just you wait. I mean, a president was indirectly impeached because of this incident. So soon after this, the Coast Guard patrol vessel 123 arrives at the ferry. They throw over a raft and they head to the ferry to start their little rescue. Just anytime I say rescue, don't think of it as a rescue. Think of it in quotations because it's just a bunch of people acting busy. The first people to step into this rescue raft are the captain and crew members. Not all, but a few.
They're like, I'm out.
Yeah, they're like, bye. They have abandoned the ship. But then so does the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard, the vessel, distances itself from the ferry and they try not to enter the ferry, get close to the ferry. They don't try anything. Meanwhile, there's about 3 helicopters that are just circulating, that are just loitering the area, watching.
What's the deal? What's the problem then?
No one's giving them any commands.
So they're all clueless on what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And the captain is like just staying silent.
Yeah. And then the Blue House is like, well, we can't tell you what to do unless we get a clear HD 4K video. And then all these other authorities like the Coast Guard, the Mokpo Coast Guard, the Chindo authorities, they're like, well, we don't know what to do. Have you tried calling the Blue House?
Wow.
So everyone's just waiting around. And what's crazy is that there was a U.S. Navy vessel that was nearby that rushed to the scene and they're like, hey, we can help. And the U.S. Navy is so equipped. This vessel had 100 Marines on there. 100 Marines. South Korea was like, it's fine. We're waiting on a video.
The government shut them down?
Yeah, the government was like, it's fine.
The U.S. Navy was going to step in and they stopped that too. What the fuck?
Handled.
So they literally had the opportunity to have somebody else do their job because clearly the South Korean government weren't doing shit about it. And the captain, they were sitting around doing nothing, playing with their dicks. And then they literally had the opportunity to just have somebody else do the work for them. And they denied that too. It's like they wanted these kids to die.
This vessel had 100 Marines on there. 100 Marines. South Korea was like, it's fine. We're waiting on a video.
The government shut them down?
Yeah, the government was like, it's fine. We're handling it.
Oh my God.
I'm going on a little side note, but another rant. The U.S. vessel, the Navy vessel, actually had helicopters on the vessel and they had launch pads. So basically, they didn't have to go back to land to bring survivors. They could just go back and forth to their vessel that's parked very close to the sinking ferry so they could save an insane number of survivors. 1 or 2 helicopters could just do nonstop back and forth in such short time. We're going to dive into the U.S. Navy later because there's a lot of stuff there. Now, anyways, these are not leisure helicopters either. The helicopters that are circulating the ferry are Coast Guard helicopters and they make no additional effort. So they saved 6 people initially. That's it. They make no additional efforts to rescue anyone. They later claimed that they had no idea that there were passengers inside. They thought the rescue was over and they were just surveilling the sinking of the ferry.
Cap.
To sum it up, the rescue teams were just rescuing anyone that comes to the deck where you can visibly see them, but every single passenger was told to stay in their cabins.
Oh my God. I cannot even imagine what that captain was going through at that moment.
But we can't even imagine it because I don't think any of us have such little empathy for human life.
Yeah, like when he got out, does he think that all the kids are going to come onto the deck eventually? Or
does he think
like
the Coast Guard's going to break in?
Yeah, is he knowingly making a decision? It's like, whatever, I just got to save myself. Let them die.
Okay, my speculation is probably the last one because I imagine if rescue efforts were made, he would be the last one rescued because that's kind of how it is in maritime communities. But maybe he thought there is a bigger chance he might die. Because I don't know what he was thinking, genuinely. I can't even guess. No one is saving anyone unless they're visibly...
Yeah, I'm trying to think too. I genuinely believe nobody's that fucked up to understand what that captain was thinking. Once he got out, once he got saved, what was he like? What do you think his mindset was? Hearing all the commotion, hearing all the parents panicking, crying about their kids that are still out there about to die. Meanwhile, he's there chilling. Do you think he felt any guilt at all? I bet he was just thinking like, oh dude, I mean, it's too late now. It's been a whole full day. If I come out and say now that I'm the captain, I'm gonna look fucked up. Everybody's gonna look at me and scream at me and maybe beat me up and shit. I'm just gonna stay quiet. Because his opportunity to speak up was the first day. It was already fucked up that he was saved first and didn't say he was the captain. But like still, after that, he still had like kind of a chance to be like, okay, wait, I'm the captain. I can help y'all save these people. That was his chance. But I feel like now at this point, he's let it go on for so long. He's scared. He's scared of the consequence that's gonna hit him in the moment that he comes clean.
Out on the deck, like waving their arms around in these bright red life jackets. Like I said, the problem is nobody was told to come out onto the deck. The helicopters again claimed that they had no reason to believe that there were passengers inside. One helicopter Coast Guard officer, even during an interview, complains, rescue's hard. Because you tell a person that you're rescuing to watch their step, and they don't watch their step, even if you tell them to.
옆에서 말을 해도 안들 카물면 보통 올라갈 때 조심하라고 자세 차랍니다.
아니 그거는 알겠는데 그 사람들 상황은 아닌데 지금 구조팀에서 구조 하시는 입장에서는 확인해야 될 인거 같은 게 아닌가.
제가 물어본 것 같아요. 근데
A new step is like, that's not the point here. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that you circled around the sinking ferry and made no attempts to save anyone. They're like,
yeah, you stupid bitch.
Like, why would you even bring that up? It's so bizarre. Nobody asked. Now,
Bruh.
The annoying part is the helicopters that are circulating were talking separately with the Blue House. The giant vessel from the Coast Guard was speaking separately with the Blue House as well as the Coast Guard. There was no coordination. It seemed like everything was all hell breaks loose. Nobody knows what they're doing. Blue House is still asking for videos, and the only people that do something to save human lives. Do you see all these little boats? Those are civilian boats and fishermen. No way. They are the ones that took action. They are risking their lives, pulling up straight next to this capsizing, ginormous ferry. And it's very dangerous to get that close to a boat that's capsizing, especially with boats like this. And they're pulling people out of the water. One of the fishermen, Hyun, in the blue boat, he said he saw the boat listing to one side from afar, and he realized that it wasn't balancing itself back out. So he rushes over, he starts rescuing passengers that were jumping into the cold water, and he said it was hell. It was agonizing. There were a lot of people, not enough boats. The people in the water are yelling for help. The ferry was sinking fast. He said he had no idea of how many people he saved, but he was told he saved about 25 people. He said, but I don't know for sure. The people that were trapped inside the ferry couldn't come out. They were just trapped inside the ferry. If everyone was saved, maybe I would feel proud of myself. But there's grieving parents out there, so how can I feel proud? Even though he's one of the civilians.
Dude, it took civilians, random civilians and fishermen to do a fucking, like, that's just crazy. You're on the Coast Guard team. You're out there. How do you not feel that sense of urgency just like naturally to save people?
Civilians saving past grieving parents out there, so how can I feel proud?
It's not even being incompetent. Yeah, I see you guys calling them incompetent. I think it's even worse than that, because incompetence means like you try, but you're not good enough to get the job done. These guys didn't try. That was straight up negligence.
Even though he's one of the civilians saving passengers while the Coast Guard is doing nothing, he lives with guilt for not saving everyone. What's frustrating is when the ferry starts to list, if the captain had ordered everyone to put on a life jacket and get to the dock where they're visible, the likelihood of every single person surviving was incredibly high. The amount of vessels nearby, not just civilian boats and fishermen, but the Coast Guard ships, the US Navy vessels, I mean, the resources of that US Navy vessels, like I said, multiple helicopters, landing decks of the helicopters, over 1,000 Marines ready to assist in air, sea, rescue.
1,000?
1,000, sorry, did I say 100?
You say 100.
1,000. 1,000 Marines, that's how big the US Navy vessel was.
Wow.
1,000 Marines. And I know I'm American, so it might not mean anything because it's just patriotism. But if I'm in the water somewhere, I want these Marines to save me. And America and Korea are on really good terms, so I don't know why they declined for help. But a lot of people think it's... President Park was known to have a big ego and was very, very self-conscious about international relations, but not in the way that you want.
Oh, the current South Korean president at the time didn't want to be seen as weak. Didn't want to ask for help from America. Like, nah, we got this. We got this.
And was very, very self-conscious about international relations, but not in the way that you want your president to be. Not in the way of like, oh, of course we want good international relations, but wanted to look good is all she cared about. So the US Navy vessel just loitered around waiting to be used at any given moment. They're like waiting to be called in because, it'd be a shit show if they just went in there. But the call never came. The rescue could have been so successful, and these Marines are specifically trained in air-sea rescue.
No way.
The Korean Coast Guard, they were more like patrol people. They patrol to make sure that there's no illegal fishermen from other countries fishing in their seas. Most of the Korean Coast Guard was on a job to look for illegal Chinese fishermen, literally. That was their job. So the US Navy, why were they not used? I still don't understand. So one thing that you notice that's a problem is that all of these officials who get paid by the state, by government tax dollars that the civilians pay, they don't want to be the ones to make the call. They don't want to be the ones held accountable. So everyone keeps pushing responsibility onto each other. And that's what resulted in so many of these different vessels and helicopters just waiting around while people are dying. But there are heroes in this story. So do you remember the first emergency call made was by a student, Choi?
Mm-hmm.
He stayed on the phone with emergency services trying to give them the exact location of the sinking ferry.
So then they should know there's kids in there.
Yeah, exactly. He tried to give the exact location because, again, I don't know why this was such a problem. I don't know how they didn't know where the exact location was. But remember the 2.5 hour delay? I guess they were thinking the boat was closer to Jeju because they didn't factor in the delay. But they were closer to Jindo Island, so it was a mess. And Choi, he was sad that he wasn't able to call his parents because
oh my god, so they found his body, he died. And I don't know if you guys heard Stephanie right there, because he stepped up, that brave 16-year-old boy, because he stepped up to be the one on the phone trying his best to provide the information necessary to get everybody saved. Because he did that, he couldn't make his last phone call to his parents. He sacrificed his last chance to speak to his family to try and get everybody saved.
A lot of these other kids, they all had cell service and they called their parents, but they never got a call from their son. They were later told that he was the one on the phone with emergency services. And they said, it made sense. We're just so proud of him, and we think that God brought our boy into this world for this purpose, to try and save people. While Captain Lee and a few of the other crew members escaped, there were some crew members who refused. Park Ji-yeon, Chung Hyun-sun, and Kim Gi-won, they stayed aboard the ferry to help the students. All three went down with the sinking boat. Park Ji-young was the youngest part-time worker of the crew. She was just 22 years old. I mean, she's barely older than these high school students. 2 years prior to this, her father passed away and her mom didn't have enough money. So she dropped out of school and started working. She was one of the first to have an easy escape. She was like near the dock. She could hear the kids though, and the PA system was still telling them to stay put. So she runs to the ship, took off her life jacket, gave it to a younger kid nearby who didn't have one. And like I said, she's basically a kid herself. She starts stumbling, running as fast as she can through the halls and yells for the students to evacuate. She's handing out life jackets. She tells them to jump ship. She guides some 50 students to the civilian fishing boats who lift them out of the water and into the boat. One survivor remembers grabbing Park's arm and saying, okay, just come jump in the water with us. Like, you don't have a life jacket, but I'm gonna hold your arm. And she said, after saving you guys, after saving the rest of them, I'll get out. Crew goes out last. And then she just disappeared again to save more kids. She kept going, and the last time someone saw her alive was going deeper into the water where it was already chest level to see if there were more students. Her body was later found floating face down. Still no life jacket. Even in her last moments, she never wore one because there wasn't enough life jackets.
These kids showed way more bravery and integrity than that entire team of adults.
2 other crewmates, Chung Hyun-sun and Kim Gi-won, they refused to escape with cowards. They wanted to save the kids. Chung and Kim also could have been very easily rescued, but they decided to go back down and help the children. They were both 28, and they were actually getting married later that year to each other. Their bodies were later found as well, and they had spent their last moments saving children. These 3 part-time crew members would formally be recognized by the government as national martyrs, because it was just such a stark contrast to the captain and the crew, most of the crew, who were among the first to abandon the ship. Young Dae-hong was another crew member that went down with the ship. He's 45 years old, and he called his wife, and he told her, this is where you need to find the savings for our teenage son's college tuition, okay? And when she tried to plead with him, he told her, I love you, but I can't talk. I have to go save the kids. His body was found a month later, and his face was unrecognizable, and there was a walkie-talkie found near him. Soo-young was a young teacher, and it was her second year teaching at Tanwon High. She was very young, and it was her first year on the school.
She looks very young, and that's a teacher, man.
Was a young teacher, and it was her second year teaching at Tanwon High. She was very young, and it was her first year on the school field trip. When the boat started sinking, she texted her mom, Mom, the ship is sinking. Her mom called her and was like, hurry, put on a life vest, and she responded calmly, Mom, the students are all wearing life vests, indicating there weren't any more for her. She texted her boyfriend after this and said, I'm sorry, there's no more life vests. thank you, and I love you. And he calls her and she says, I can't, I'm sorry. My battery is low and some of the students still need to call their parents. Her last words were, I love you, thank you, to her boyfriend. Another teacher was Ko Chang-suk, and Mr. Ko was a PE teacher. Oh my God, this picture. This is the PE teacher. He was a PE teacher for the last decade. And at his old job, before he got to Tanwon, there was actually a fire in the school. And he was given like an award by the school because he ran in head on into the fire to save students from the burning fire. He also went down. And I mean, there was no question what he was going to do. He was going to save the kids. He left behind a loving wife and 2 sons. His body actually wouldn't be recovered until 3 years after the incident. There was a memorial service held for him.
3 years after.
And a student came and said, Mr. Ko could have escaped early, but he stayed to take care of us until the very end. So these are all heroes. And it's not really a heartwarming story, though, where you feel good in the end. You're like, yes, the hero won, because nobody wins. There's like way too many villains in this one to even get close to the number of heroes. There's another story, though, on the boat where a 6-year-old girl, this reminds me of Itaewon, but a 6-year-old girl was there with her parents and her 7-year-old brother. So
I'm already scared. 6 years old, bro.
Oh, this reminds me of Itaewon, but a 6-year-old girl was there with her parents and her 7-year-old brother. So they were part of the passengers that were going on vacation to Jeju. She was passed one by one from adults to the water to one of the fishermen's boats. All the way. Her parents and her 7-year-old brother would all perish.
I don't even know how to describe that. But I mean, that's just like I guess that's like a show of humanity right there. It's tragic, but at the same time beautiful that they're valuing the life of the youngest person there, the 6-year-old girl. So everybody passed her along, including the 7-year-old older brother.
To get this girl to safety, and she would be the youngest survivor of Sewol. Now, civilians were the only hope for these children because the government, the authorities, they were doing nothing. Like I said, most of these boats saving these people are civilians, fishermen, commercial fishermen, just regular citizens, not government workers. But many civilian divers who saw the news said they were gearing up to volunteer as rescuers. These are like professional divers who have been doing this that want to volunteer to save these kids, right? They know the dangers. They're gearing up, they're coming from Seoul and all these places. But then the news starts flooding that everyone has been rescued. So they're like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have to go. Like, why would I go into the water if everyone's already rescued out of the water? And it wasn't until hours later there were these like rumors and these kind of like fishy things that these volunteer divers were even picking up on. Because, you know, these are people who know how to dive, and the way that the news was reporting these rescues just didn't sound right. So they're like, why don't I just head to Chindo Island and see what's going on? Maybe they need me, maybe they don't. I mean, at least I can try, right? So many precious hours were lost because these civilian divers didn't go at the time because, I mean, nobody's blaming the civilian divers here. They're risking their lives to save others, but the fact that they thought everyone had been rescued, it's just so frustrating how grossly mishandled this was. Many of the civilian divers, they volunteered and they started arriving at around 4 p.m. that day. The boat started sinking at like 9 a.m. They got there around 4 p.m. and they were told to report to a command ship of the Coast Guard that was stationed near the ferry. So these volunteer divers, they don't come to play. They're suiting up, gearing up, mentally preparing themselves, but the Coast Guard is not letting them do their jobs. One of the civilian divers said it was bizarre. I was being walked around this Coast Guard vessel. Like, come here, let me introduce you to my colleague. Oh, and this is my captain here. Oh, and then this is my senior colleague. What did you say your name was? How long have you guys been diving? Yeah, oh, that's cool. Oh, you know, my colleague is from that area. Do you want to come to the cafeteria? They prepared ramen. This is not an exaggeration. The rescue diver said they prepared ramen and he was so disgusted. He just didn't understand. He saw some of the top dogs aboard this command ship. 2-star Navy officers, chief of the Coast Guard, chief of the West Coast Coast Guard, the chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard, fancy suits and shoes, tapping away on their laptops.
Wait, I'm confused. Like they're not sending people down the water?
No. That's what they're doing, just tip-tapping on their laptops. The ramen was even brought into the conference room for these chiefs to eat, and the diver that was interviewed said he wished he could have recorded the video of these chiefs just digging into these noodles like pigs. They said they ate the ramen noodles, had a meeting for 5 minutes, and then the chiefs were like, well, we got other places to be, so bye. He was sickened to see that the chief of the West Coast Guard went to a press conference like immediately after this, the whole ramen debacle, in his uniform with all of his badges and stated, as of today, 164 vessels, 24 aircraft, 178 special rescue workers are doing our best in conducting a search of the area.
Right after that. Oh, hell, dude, I also wish these divers would have recorded. Imagine after this little like creepy interaction, like where they're like completely ignoring the fact that children just died while they're eating and feasting away on lunch. Right after that, they get on the national television to lie and be like, we're working tirelessly to save all these kids. Like, what the fuck? I imagine that I would have leaked that video instantly. Like, yeah, these guys are full of shit.
Doing our best in conducting a search of the area. The civilian diver had no words, just no words. But he's not alone. Many of the civilian divers came forward anonymously later to say that the Coast Guard would not let them do their job. And it wasn't even a job, they're volunteering. Just wouldn't let them do it. It was just nonstop like, oh, come meet my colleague. Oh, are you sure that's up to code? Your diving suit? Are you sure? What is it made out of? They're like, what is your deal? Let us go save some children right now. So the parents, now remember how the parents wanted to rent a boat to go out to sea for themselves and to save their children. Well, the very first day, a group of the parents do rent a boat and they go to report back to the others what's going on. And one dad screamed, they told us civilians can enter the water, but the Coast Guard can't. What is this?
What?
They're basically saying, oh, you want to dive in and get your kid? Dive in and get your kid, but we can't. He's screaming, what is this? What is this? The civilian diver, one of the civilian rescue divers, had volunteered to go on the boat with them. And he was explaining, like, with these conditions, the Coast Guard should be going in. The conditions are calm. This is like optimal rescue conditions right now. Earlier that day, civilian fishermen would try to break windows to save people, but the Coast Guard said, no, we can't do that. So they can't break windows. They can't go into the ferry before it sinks to save people.
What the fuck can you guys do?
And now that part of the ferry is sunken, they can't try to rescue people by diving. They can't do anything. What are you doing? Why do you exist? Why?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Why the fuck are you even here on this earth right now?
A reporter asked a parent who saw the ferry sinking and said, and what are the Coast Guard doing right now? And he says, as of right now, there's nothing they're doing. April 16th was the morning the boat started listing, okay? Now, at 10:52, reporters went out to the scene and still nothing was being done. 10:52 p.m. A whole day had passed.
Like 14 hours later?
Yeah, and nothing was being done. Let me show you how calm the waters were.
You're saying 14 hours?
Bro, that's literally the kids. And then, yeah, Stephanie's pointing out, look how calm the waters are. Nothing is stopping the Coast Guard from going out there and investigating and getting some actual work done. Not a single wave.
How calm the waters were.
Like, just
You're
go,
saying 14
bro.
hours later, the boat's still sinking?
Yeah, it's still
Like, just
actively
go.
And this is like, you need to dive in. So what happens on these boats is time is of the essence. Of course, the golden hour was the first hour and a half that the boat even started listing, way in the morning at like 9 a.m. when the captain was like, tell everyone to stay in their cabins. That was golden hour. Almost everyone could have been saved had they just gotten to the deck. They would have been saved, okay? Now, the next golden time was considered the next 72 hours because there's actually a phenomenon that's quite common where there's air pockets inside of boats. So these divers need to go in and get these people inside of these air pockets. So if you're in a room where no water has seeped in, which is sometimes possible, you're alive. You have about 72 hours. So these divers need to get down there and hope that there's a lot of air pockets.
Yeah. Even there, if there's one person, they
That's
should be
everything.
doing everything. Yes.
This is how still and calm the water was. Do you see how it's dark? Where are all the Coast Guard vessels? Where are the divers? This should be lit up like a command center. This should be lit up like the 4th of July. This is what it looked like. It's the most peaceful water. There's no waves really. Nothing. No one's out there. During press conferences, the Coast Guard made it seem like it is pure chaos out there with our rescue efforts. We've got how many ships, how many people? Oh, you guys, South Korea, just you wait. Coast Guard's got you. This is what it looked like. They said the water was as calm as a lake. There wasn't a single wave, but nothing was being done. You could still see the ferry. It hadn't fully capsized yet. There were no rescue efforts. I mean, imagine the anger of the parents seeing that and they can't do anything for their children. They were yelling at their boat to the Coast Guard, do something. They screamed, they're alive, you have to rescue them. The Coast Guard never responded. All they did was circle the Sewol ferry over and over.
What's their excuses now?
They said that they had to survey the area. That's the thing that they constantly say in this whole tragedy is they needed to survey the conditions. They needed to make sure they could go in.
That's like the equivalent of retail apparel workers saying, let me go check in the back. And then in all actuality, the person just goes to the back and they just chill there on their phone for a couple minutes while you wait because they don't have the item.
I don't get it. Who's in charge? I'm so confused about this.
Every Coast Guard official is saying a different thing, but all of them have the same message of we're doing everything we can. But nobody's doing anything.
Okay, so it sounds like there's someone from the top not letting them do something, right?
So it's speculated. It's not that they were not letting them do something, but they had no idea how to do anything. the Korean Coast Guard was not trained for search and rescue.
They can't dive in and pull people.
So they're like, we're probably going to die. So they were allegedly just telling the Blue House, whatever you're suggesting we do, we're not capable. We can't do it.
Then where's the capable people? Where's the...
But they didn't say we're not capable. They're like, conditions won't let us. The condition is too bad. The condition is too bad. So then I don't think South Korea would then go to the US and be like, hey, the condition is too bad. Y'all get in there. A lot of these politicians, it was like a balancing game. They want help, but their reputations depend on them not asking for help. Whether it's from different departments in Korea, whether it's civilian rescue divers, whether it's the US Navy, they did not want to ask for help. But they themselves did not have the competency to do the search and rescue, but they couldn't admit to that. So they're all just like shifting blame around. So for President Park, I imagine it's embarrassing that you don't have a team of qualified people to do search and rescue in your whole nation. Like, imagine the US Navy f***ed up this bad. You don't think America would be like, I guess we're not a cool, powerful nation. I guess we're... It's just a lot of like reputation control.
I'm sorry, hearing Stephanie talk like that is interesting. It's funny.
I guess we're not a cool, powerful nation. I guess we're... It's just a lot of like reputation control, and none of these Coast Guard officials wanted to be the one to do it, because there's like 5 different Coast Guards. That's another huge problem. It's not like, oh, just US Navy.
Okay.
Because then you have a top dog that's like, okay, well, if the president doesn't want to do anything, I gotta at least do something, right? But there's like the Mokpo Coast Guard, the Coast Guard of the West Coast, the regular Coast Guard. There's so many. It's like, it's just so annoying. And I'm sorry that I've been dogging on South Korea so much recently, but it is true. I'll just go ahead and spit it out. South Korea is it gives me superficial vibes. Like, they care so much about external validation. I mean, you see it with even in simple things like how big plastic surgery is over there. It's all about how you look to other people. It's all about the impressions you have on other people. And it's even displayed in the government in this case. Like, they just want to look good. They don't want to look like they need help. They don't want to look incompetent. They want to look good rather than just doing their jobs. Like, rather than saving lives, they just want to look good. That's what they prioritize in all aspects of society. They just want to look the part. They care more about their reputation and their careers. Yeah, the parents are screaming, what are you doing? You need to do something, get in the water. And they even screamed, I'm not saying this is easy work, but you need to at least show that you're trying. There are survivors in that ship. What is wrong with you? It's so heartbreaking because a dad on the boat tries to jump into the water and everyone tries to stop him. And what's crazy about this is that the Coast Guard official documents report that they were doing underwater rescue efforts at that exact time that the parents are out there watching them. There was no such thing. So how do your reports say that you were doing intensive underwater rescue? They stated that they did rescue all night long, but all they did was get on a little boat and circle the capsizing ferry. At one point, one of the Coast Guards drives up close to it and just like knocks on the ferry. It's like, a parent who saw that said, I can't believe I was inches away from my child and all I could do is helplessly watch him die. So the parents, the reporters on this boat that saw this, they saw the discrepancy of no actual rescue efforts being done. They recorded videos of it, sent it to all the major news network. So the reporters on there were a lot of trusted reporters by parents. Did you know at first the parents were allowed a boat out there by the Coast Guard and it was filled to the brim with mainstream media news reporters? There wasn't enough room for parents. The parents forcibly kicked them out, but just the disgust that these media reporters were like, well, I know that we said 2 seconds ago that we already rescued everyone, but can I go take some more pictures out there? So their trusted reporters went out with them and they sent all of these videos to mainstream major...
Sorry, it's just I'm not used to her acting silly. And then in a video like this too, I'm just okay. She's just so extra and petty this episode. For good reason though, because fuck everybody. The government, the mainstream media.
I know that we said 2 seconds ago that we already rescued everyone, but can I go take some more pictures out there? So their trusted reporters went out with them and they sent all of these videos to mainstream major news networks. Not a single one of them aired it. Not a single one of them talked about the discrepancy because they were under President Park. President Park was known as a very, very fascinating woman who loved to bully reporters and mainstream news media. That was her thing.
So they're this makes her look bad, so we can't post it?
Yeah, because then we're going to be on her list. That was
literally Trump. That's Trump media right there. Jesus Christ.
That was the very first day and night of rescue efforts. That's all they did. Nothing. I mean, they did nothing. The next day, April 17th, it doesn't get any better. There is still no control tower, no organized operation. Nobody has one person that they're really reporting to. Even the president, President Park, she was MIA for 7 hours, the first 7 hours of the incident. She was nowhere to be found. We're going to get to it later. So the president and the prime minister, they visit the area in Chindo Island where the parents are gathered.
I don't say this word often, especially not against women. I hope I get a pass this time. What a fucking bitch. Actually, she is a bitch.
So the president and the prime minister, they visit the area in Chindo Island where the parents are gathered. Apparently, a boatload of politicians, lawmakers, and parents had gone out on a boat to go visit the Coast Guard. And parents were disgusted. I wish I was eloquent. I wish I could describe to you what kind of emotion that must have been. But the parents said they stood there and they watched the Coast Guard point at maps. They watched the politicians in suits go, It was like watching people pretend to do a job. It was like watching a skit. They felt like they were losing their minds. The Coast Guard is saying things that they know are not true. Like, we worked so hard last night to do underwater rescue. They're pointing at random maps, pointing at pictures of inside the Sewol ferry. Parents get out onto the dock of the Coast Guard vessel and they see divers go under the surface of the water, kind of like flap around for 5 minutes and then come back out. They said it's like a sick joke. Like everyone's pretending. Like I imagine I would want to shake someone by their shoulders. Like, hello? Can you wake up? Like there's people dying. The parents decide that they can't trust anyone, so they start their own task forces and have coordinated group chats to relay information in a clean and orderly fashion. They were more informed than the Coast Guard. One parent actually confronts a government official who tells him, we were doing rescues all night. The parent gets in his face and says, stop lying and manipulating the news and tell me, look me in the eye and tell me you were doing rescues all night. The government official seems shocked and tries to grab his phone and call someone like, we were. The government officials actually seem shocked that the parents have such up-to-date information. I guess they didn't think that the parents would be that coordinated. Like, parents would call them out for every single discrepancy and they were shocked. And every single one of them has the same reaction. They're saying something so confidently. We rescued this many people. Oh, this is what we've been doing. The parent confronts them with their lies. They all grab their phone and call someone. One of the parents literally goes, why are you lying to me? We have our parents on a boat out there. I just talked to them. That is a blatant lie. The government official goes, and they were at the Coast Guard boat? Oh, and he grabs his phone.
Oh my God. It's like when you see a lot of politicians do this. They have their talking points, that they have like their marching orders of what to say, like machines. And then if anybody questions them and makes them deviate from the from their script, they break down and they're like calls mommy and daddy, aka the leader, aka the captain, aka the president, like, oh, what the fuck do I say now?
And they were at the Coast Guard boat. Oh, and he grabs his phone. Oh, yeah, 여보세요. Yeah, despicable. I mean... Now, at that moment, the prime minister shows up at the Jindo gym, and he said...
Shit, that'd be me over my kid. And that's the thing. They're helpless. They can't do shit. That is the most excruciating feeling you can feel as your loved one is passing away or has passed away. You want to do something so bad, but you literally can't. Like, there are these people just standing in your way that you can't do anything about.
Second in charge to the president in this country. I guess nobody informed him that the parents are not in the dark.
I would go crazy too.
I'm gonna be like, thank you, Prime Minister, for your efforts all night long. Because I think he walked in expecting some things and questions, but instead he was chased down and had water bottles thrown at his face. Open water bottles, which I think is symbolic in hindsight. In the end, police protected him and escorted him out. President Park Geun-hye also visited with this whole entourage of security and politicians. Parents were a bit more receptive to her because at the end of the day, this is the most powerful person in the nation. If anyone is going to help them, it's going to be her. So even if they hate her, they can't show it. But they were let down once more. She stated, I just went to the rescue team, and I want to assure you guys all, the government mobilized all resources and personnel to retrieve the victims. The Coast Guard chief also goes up next to the president and claims that he has sent 500 divers to the rescue. The parents know that this is a blatant lie. They are enraged. They start screaming at the chief of the Coast Guard. And side note, there's video of this, and President Park doesn't even seem surprised that the parents are screaming at his lies, almost as if she knows very well herself that those are blatant lies. Because I imagine if I'm the president and my chief just lied to me, I'd be like, why are they booing that? But she looks like she was expecting it.
This is the president? Yeah, it's like she knew that shit was coming. Like, ooh.
Family said they were straight up stunned at the blatant lies that were being shoved in their face. It was unbelievable. Also, Park Geun-hye starts using this as an opportunity to say that nobody cares about. Like, their kids are still out there. They want rescue teams. And she states, so what we're going to do with this is an opportunity to conduct a thorough investigation on the cause of the accident and severely punish those involved. That's not what anyone is talking about right now.
That you do not want to hear that too. The fact she's already talking about consequences for why this went wrong, what that communicates to you, the only thing you're hearing right there in that moment is it's done. Like, it's over. I mean, you lost your kid. Like, stop waiting. They're not going to be rescued. They're dead. Let's just move on to the next step of punishing people for the death. That's what the parents are hearing when she says that.
The third day, April 18th, a lot of developments took place and none of them were good. The Sewol ferry was now fully submerged. Parents went out and they couldn't see the boat anymore and they cried. Government also let a private company step in for rescue efforts. A company called Undyne started to lead the rescue attempts, but it was more of a recovery attempt. It was like a half rescue, half recovery. So there's still a chance that you can live 72 hours in an air pocket, but it was guesstimated that most of the bodies being retrieved would be dead, so it'd be a recovery attempt. Now, they sucked. Undyne sucked so bad. I think that this was just like a government contract bid that won. I don't even understand how they were in control of this. Now, the idea from the get-go was the Coast Guard or someone, since the Coast Guard is useless, would inject air into the Sewol ferry. This is going to help with multiple things. It would hopefully improve its buoyancy, and this is very important because if the boat is fully submerged in water, it's going to start sinking, and divers cannot be in there when it's sinking to the bottom. So they need it to somewhat still be near the surface of the water, makes it easier for rescue or recovery. And if there is human life, injecting air could help those air pockets survive longer. That's what Undyne was here to do. The Coast Guard couldn't do it clearly, so Undyne is here. They should have done this first thing when rescue started, but the Coast Guard didn't have the tools. So on the third day, they're like, we're bringing in a private sector. Okay, we're bringing in the private sector. Undyne's going to do this. And Undyne comes in with these massive air compressors. They're old. They're industrial use, not compatible with human life. Meaning if you injected this into a room, you'd probably kill the people in the room. The air is like auto gas air.
South Korea is not real, bro. What the fuck? Was everybody here just brain dead, incompetent idiots?
What? But Undyne Marine shows up with these compressors, with their full chest. They're like, yeah, these are the ones. Are you not even ashamed? Not only do they not have the proper equipment, but they
That's
also
like seeing somebody on fire, and then you get these guys hey, go, come on, you have buckets of water, right? And it turns out that the water that they were gonna pour onto the person to put out the fire is just oil or gasoline or some shit, and that you just make it worse. You just kill the person faster.
Again, the U.S. Navy was nearby and offered their assistance once more. They said, we have new compressors, and we also have qualified professionals that utilize these compressors and have done rescue efforts such as this one. They were denied. South Korea said, thank you, though. But no. This day also marked the first discovery or recovery of bodies. 3 bodies were recovered by civilian divers, but mainstream media said all of it was due to Undyne. Undyne recovered these bodies, and that makes me so mad because these civilian divers gave up a lot to help. They were not part of the Navy or the Coast Guard. They were moms and dads, corporate employees, professional divers in other industries. They were stay-at-home parents.
So all of the rescues that were made by civilians, by other people that did the job of the government and of the private contractor, they took the credit away from them to make it look like the country, the government was doing a good job. The fuck?
Many of these civilian divers would end up permanently injured, paralyzed, traumatized, depressed, and some would even lose their lives because of this dive. They told each other, minimize shock when you're down there. Shock is no good for anyone. The divers all made a pact to not look the students in the eye. Because once you do that, you will never be the same, and it will make it harder for you to go back down underwater. They talked about how it was the hardest thing. The ones that drowned, they would have to recover their bodies, right? So their families could put them to rest. But there was so much debris in the water because think about this big ship. There's so much things falling apart. Walls were collapsing and the hallways became narrower than your shoulder width. A lot of them had to squeeze through hallways. Bad weather delayed the use of a diving bell, so they had to use these super flimsy, flexible air hoses. But if they're twisting and turning in there, it could easily snap, break, or it could be folded to a point where they're not getting air anymore. It could get caught in things. It was very, very dangerous. They had to go down in teams of 3, and they would never forget the things they saw. There were bodies in life jackets floating around in the ship now, and the divers had to reach up, grab the bodies, and hug them so that they wouldn't keep floating up. They would find a window that they could break and get rid of all glass and debris. Then they would carefully push the body through the open window so that they could float to the surface. If a body was found without a life jacket, 2 divers, one diver would have to wrap their arms around this dead body, and the second diver would have to pull them through a rope to the surface. The divers said they found many of the students hugging each other, holding each other, or tied together. They said how hard it must have been for those kids. With the cold water rushing in and the darkness coming over them, I thought to myself, why did I even offer to volunteer with this if I can't even save one life? Most of the students had broken fingers. They tried till their very last moment to break the doors or windows to escape, breaking their fingers in the process.
And remember, all of those deaths, all of those bodies, all because of the captain. It was also the government. There was a bunch of failures in this, but when you look at the very beginning as to what started this chain of selfish fuck-ups, it was the captain that saved his own ass.
Kim Sang-ol, one of the civilian divers, said he was at home when he watched the news, and his diver buddies called him up and was like, you need to get here now. We need to save some kids. So he drove hours from his house in Sewol to the southern coast. He spent 2 months away from his family, risking his life to squeeze into these small openings, these dangerous conditions, to find bodies. They worked in 3-hour shifts.
He did it for 2 months?
2 months. 3 hours of rest, 3 hours of diving, 3 hours of rest. But like the other divers, he was having a hard time resting no matter how exhausted he was. The stress of the dives wrecked his body. The anxiety wrecked his body. Finding these water-bloated corpses of children, he said he could never get that image out of his mind and he had nightmares anytime he closed his eyes. He said, we were touching each of these children with our bare hands as we brought them up. Even now, I can't hold my wife or children. I can't stand skin. In addition to the psychological trauma he has, he suffered a shoulder injury that needed surgery. So while he was diving, a luggage compartment in the Sewol broke open and massive luggage tumbled straight onto his shoulder. He had to get surgery, and he says he drinks every day now. He just drinks because it's his medicine. In the end, his biggest regret isn't even volunteering. His biggest regret was getting there too late. He said, I couldn't even save one person. Many of the civilian volunteers.
Yeah, I can see how that would fuck you up. Like coming into direct physical contact with several dead bodies of children. I think physical contact from that point onwards would not be the same for you. That just sounds incredibly traumatizing.
So 43-year-old Kim Kwan-hong, he helped bring back 25 bodies. At one point, he lost consciousness during a dive, got swept away in the current, was saved, had to go to the ER for treatment. He stayed in the hospital for 3 days. The minute he got back out, he was back in the water. He went into places where the Coast Guard weren't even attempting to go, not even pretending like they were going to go. He went to places the Coast Guard deemed too dangerous, and he brought back children in his arms. He said, the victims were tangled together in their utter terror, and I prayed and cradled each one of them as I brought them up. The divers did their best while the country did nothing. The country did nothing, especially for the divers. Do you know what the divers got in exchange for their contribution? Nothing. Okay, his only thing that he got, the only reason he did this was for the families of the victims, to give them closure and to do right by the children of the nation, but his body was wrecked. He cannot dive anymore. He has mounting hospital bills. He has paralysis in his left thigh. The government refused to deem the 39 injured civilian divers during the search operations as wounded by righteous causes, which would allow them to get health benefits and not have medical bills. In fact, the government actually turned their back on volunteer divers. They tried to charge a few of them for negligence when a diver died during a mission. They said, well, it's because of you other divers didn't check his equipment. But the Coast Guard was never held accountable. Divers had to go to court to explain, I am not responsible for another diver's death. I am just volunteering to save bodies. The divers that all tried while the Coast Guard did nothing, they were being used and abused. In 2015, Kim testified about the trauma that he suffered from handling all the dead bodies during the rescue efforts. He said he cannot forget it. He will never forget it. And in 2017, he took his own life. His final text to his loved ones were, I'll see you in a better place in the next life. I'm sorry. So you're mad, I'm mad, okay? Let's all be mad at someone. And there's a whole lot of people to be mad at in this case. Chonghaejin Ferry Company, the Coast Guard, the former president, and mainstream media.
This whole case was just people shifting accountability, blaming other people, trying to look busy, full of incompetence, as South Korea does all the time. They just want to look good. They want to look like they're doing shit.
So this particular ferry, the Sewol, had a capacity of holding 90 vehicles. On that day, there were 124 cars and 56 trucks.
Wow.
None of them were properly secured. None of them were even tied down. They were just driven onto the cargo port and just left on park. They also took in more cargo than allowed for that size of a boat.
Fuck? They used that bitch like a parking lot. You cannot be doing that on a boat. I've never even been on a boat, and I'm not dumb enough to be able to say that's okay. I'm not even just saying that to make these guys look worse.
They also took in more cargo than allowed for that size of a boat. Their maximum cargo hold is 987 tons, but they took in 1,157 tons, again, none of which was tied down.
Do we know why the person at the beginning turned the boat so much? 15 degrees?
Unclear to this day. We think it's incompetence. Just straight up was like trying to do 5, but turn 15 because it's manual steering. And I'll tell you why we think it's incompetence, because no one was trained. Like none of the crews were trained. Oh, and side note, not all big boats are like that. Many big boats can turn at even higher degrees and be fine. But this specific boat, it was like a industry known thing between this company that this boat can only turn 5 degrees because it's unbalanced. It's not a universal boat thing. It's like this boat can only turn 5 degrees. Now, it's not good to do a lot of degrees of turns, but still, this is crazy. The boat starts leaning to the left, which causes all the cargo in all the cars to slam to the left, which starts leaking in tons of water. Now, remember the ballast water that I was talking about? We have some exact measurements here. Like I said, it serves a very important purpose. It keeps the center of gravity low. But there's another thing that it does. So it's actually compartmentalized, the water. It's not just like one big water tub. It's like you have the left tub and the right tub, and I'm simplifying it. And then in between these two tubs, you have these pumps. So what happens is if the boat starts leaning to the left, you start pumping this water to the right tub, okay, to balance it out. The pumps were broken. the pumps were broken. That is, I can't even describe to you how bad that is.
This is just reminding me of the Korean death mall case, almost exactly.
Typically, it's around the 2 times mark, meaning you need double the water for the cargo. So if there's 100 pounds of water, you can only have 50 pounds of cargo. Okay? In this case, the Sewol was carrying about 580 tons of ballast water. For the amount of cargo they had, they needed 2,000 tons of ballast water. They had a fourth.
Yeah, so it's completely off.
So off. And that's what they started with. Okay? The crew actually pumped out hundreds of tons of water from the bottom to accommodate additional cargo when they were loading. And as the boat goes, you actually lose more ballast, like water, because part of that compartment is fuel. So as your boat is going, you lose fuel because you're using the fuel. So it becomes lighter. That's why you need extra water. So let's work our way up the food chain. The first people at fault were the captain and the crew. Not all the crew, but many members of the crew. Crewmates were investigated for their abysmal handling of the evacuation, and one crewmate in particular was told verbatim by authorities, remember, to go tell everyone to put on a life jacket? Yeah, well, he didn't do it. He was just like, oh yeah, I told them, but he just walked around the deck and was like, okay, yeah. What's crazier is that all the crew members that were on the bridge with the captain, they all left with him. They were some of the first to be rescued. But that also meant nobody else was on the bridge anymore to keep open communication with rescue efforts. So them leaving the boat wasn't just bad that they were abandoning the boat, but there was no one to communicate with them on the boat. So all these Coast Guards are like, we're trying to talk to people on the boat, but like nobody's on the boat because you guys are all here. That's cool. A former U.S. Coast Guard investigator believes if those announcements of every passenger to stay in their cabin were not made, the passengers most likely, just human nature, would have gone to the deck to see what was going on. Then they would have become easily visible and more easily accessible to rescuers. Now, of course, it's heavily discussed and speculated how much of this announcement played a role in the deaths. Passenger Koo, a survivor, said that the passengers were trapped inside by windows that were very hard to break. He said he actually wanted to escape earlier, but those nonstop announcements kept telling him to stay put. He said the rescue was horrendous. We were all wearing life jackets. We all had time. If people had jumped into the water, they could have been rescued from the water. Another survivor said, the announcement told us to stay put, but the ship was already sinking. There were a lot of students who didn't get out of the ship in time because of those announcements. Okay, fine. So the captain and these crew members, minus a few of the hero crew members, they are horrendous, but how do they fuck up so majorly? Like, that doesn't even make sense. How do you even not have a loose plan on what to do in situations like this? That brings us to the company that owns the Sewol Ferry, Chonghaejin Marine Company. Chonghaejin Marine is like a different kind of evil, okay? This is in connection with our last episode. Chonghaejin's company's biggest shareholders are owned by another company that is controlled by a billionaire church leader founder, Yoo Byung-eun's 2 sons. And in recent years, it was discovered the founder, Yoo Byung-eun.
What the fuck? What the fuck are you?
And in recent years, it was discovered that the Yoo family received a total of at least $3.82 million from the ferry company. They got paid out, like about $4 million from this ferry company. And you're like, okay, that's great, right? That means the ferry company is doing well. No, the ferry company was in financial ruins. The year before the sinking, they reported a loss of $800,000 that year. They were cutting down on spending because the bottom line wasn't making sense. And you know where they were cutting down on spending? It was not to give their shareholders money. It was in the training and safety department of employees and new hires. Prosecutors discovered that so much money was being funneled to the billionaire family, nothing was left for the actual company. Nothing was left to train the employees. The company was so starved of funds that they spent only $2 on the safety training for the Sewol's crew members. $2. You get hired, the company spends $2 to train you. And do you know what that money was spent on? It was not an actual training. The $2 was spent to buy a fake paper certificate that said you are now qualified to be a crew member. You have done your safety courses. Life jackets, life rafts were left uninspected from the 90s. And the life jackets weren't even stored where they were supposed to be, which is on the upper decks or near evacuation points. They were stored in the passenger cabins. Crew members who worked for the company admitted in interviews they would have had no clue what to do in case of an emergency. They've never had an evacuation training or a drill. To put it in perspective how horrendous that is, the U.S. Coast Guard regulations require passenger vessels to hold an abandoned ship drill and fire drill every single week. And it's not even like a hee ha ha we did it moment. You have to lower a lifeboat onto the water and start the engine of that lifeboat. That is the full drill. So it's a full-scale drill. Clearly, the Sewol did not do this, and Korean Coast Guards never regulated or followed up to any of the drills or training. But that still doesn't explain why the ship sank. Well, we have the overloading of the cargo, we have the ballast water, but there's actually more. All of that is making the balance of this boat just unstable, okay? It's becoming more and more top-heavy. The center of the gravity is not good right now, but it was worse because Chonghaejin bought the Sewol ferry from another company. and modified it and added 2 more levels on top to accommodate passenger cabins, which would bring in more money for them, raising up the center of gravity even more.
It's literally the Korean death mall. So not only did they ignore safety protocols, such as taking in way more cargo than they should have, but now you're telling me that they added a new, like an extra passenger area that added more weight to an already super top heavy boat that was proven to be dangerous for the sake of profits.
Levels on top to accommodate passenger cabins, which would bring in more money for them, raising up the center of gravity even more, making it extra top heavy, which you don't want. They also underwent major renovations to create an art gallery, where you guessed it, they housed Mr. Yoo Byung-eun's art, or should I say Ahe's art, that he would sell to them at inflated prices.
In the boat?
In the boat, there was an art gallery with, also more weight was added because they added these marble slabs, thick marble slabs to showcase his work. And the company knew that what they were doing was dangerous. You can't even act like they were ignorant because it was discovered that between 2003 and 2011, Cheonghae-jin had 5 crashes prior to the sinking of the Sewol ferry. It was even recommended that their license be suspended or revoked, but that never happened. They actually purchased more ferries after 2011. They were also asked in 2003 to stop using the Mangol channel because you don't know what you're doing in there. You guys were in an accident in there. But they continued to use it because it shaves off a precious 7 miles on the trip to Jeju, which is 7 miles of fuel that they're saving on. Also in 2011, Cheonghae-jin company tried to board a passenger ferry, I think in the Han River, where it's during holiday season. The maximum capacity for that ferry was 200 people. They tried to board 500, and the only reason that a tragedy didn't occur is because passengers on board threatened to riot. They were like, no, you're not going to board that many people. This is insane. But that's how blatant they were in bending the rules and putting lives in danger. Dock employees had even complained that anytime they helped load or unload the Sewol, it would just roll around in the water. Company officials decided Sewol should be sold because of the complaints and the safety concerns, but that was vetoed by Mr. Billionaire Yoo Byung-eun himself. The executives instead started repeating the new mantra for the company, which was load as much cargo as possible. None of the cargo was ever chained or lashed down, meaning it would just smash around. The saddest part to all of this is that all the overloading of the Sewol, it brought in an extra $3 million. That is $10,000 for every passenger that died. That is it. $10,000 for a life. What's insane is that there's regulators for these things. You can't just start a maritime company and be like, okay, well, I'm going to do what?
Mind you, even if $3 million sounds like a lot of money to you, at that point, like, let's just say he didn't do all of that extra shit, all of the extra dangerous stuff of taking in the extra cargo and adding another passenger level. They were probably already raking in millions and millions and millions in profit. It's wanting to have that extra slice of cake. There is no ethical billionaire. To become a billionaire, you have to start being evil. You're exploiting people. You're exploiting safety. You're exploiting people's labor.
There's regulators for these things. You can't just start a maritime company and be like, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I want on my boats. There's regulators. The Korean Register of Shipping was an agency that's responsible for these things. They never followed up or facilitated inspections. Thankfully, many of those inspectors and regulators are in prison. And so now, we know that Mr. Yoo Byung-eun's children, the billionaire kids, if you guys have watched the last episode, they were also in prison, and Mr. Yoo, the billionaire, was found suspiciously dead in his apricot orchard during the nationwide hunt for him immediately after this.
Oh, that was the time.
Yes. Like right after this, everyone was like, what the hell is going on with Cheonghae-jin? They're like, who owns Cheonghae-jin? Oh, the major shareholder is this random company. Well, who owns that company? There was a manhunt. Now, it is speculated, and I think all these people should be in jail, by the way, but it is speculated that the manhunt for them was a very smart tactic for the President Park at the time, because she was putting a lot of heat on the family versus government response. She was saying, government response was bad, but like, this is the reason it even sunk in the first place. Yeah, so the corruption and incompetence does not end there. What about the Coast Guard? I don't think I need to reiterate how badly they dropped the ball on this, but it was horrendous. Like, they should be ashamed to even wear uniform. The first rescue vessel, Coast Guard Vessel 123, they went to the ferry and they waited 20 minutes before they even rescued the captain. Because they're like, well, we got here, but we don't know what to do. So they just sat around until someone was like, I guess you could send a small boat and try to rescue someone. Do you see anyone? They're like, yeah, we see some people on the deck. They're like, okay. It was also revealed that the Coast Guard not only refused to rescue people essentially, but they made it harder for civilians or other nations to help. So when civilians came, they're like, I'm going to try to rescue people. The Coast Guard was like inspecting their stuff, looking at their stuff. Like, I don't think you shouldn't do that. Where's your license? Do you have a fishing license, or were you out here illegally fishing? I'm trying to save people. I'm trying to do your job. They're like the parking ticket police, and people are dying. They also were so bad. Eventually, once it was deemed that everyone was dead, the U.S. Navy and a lot of their professional divers were brought in to recover a lot of the bodies that were hard to find. The U.S. Navy took one look at how the Korean Coast Guard was handling things and said, unless you fix this list of insanely abysmal conditions of safety, we are not sending a single American in there. So the U.S. Navy and professional divers were finally, after like months, asked to come in and rescue some not rescue, but recover bodies. And the U.S. said, okay, fine, we'll go take a look. The Navy looks around where the ferry had sank. They have a list of the most egregious safety violations that they'd ever seen. And they're like, we are not sending a single American into the water unless you fix all of this first.
Jesus. So they had opportunities to actually let the American Marines help. And then when they finally did, way after the fact. It was just too late. Like the Marines couldn't even help if they wanted to. They were like, bro, this shit it's ridiculously dangerous.
And the Korean Coast Guard was like, then I guess we'll just figure it out ourselves. They just refused to make it safe for anyone to dive. It was bizarre. The US Navy was like, this is bizarre. Just how unprofessional and unsafe and ultimately how annoying you're making this and impossible for people to even help you. Like you can't do your job, but now you're making it impossible for me to do your job. Ridiculous. Now, another thing about the Coast Guard, remember the Mokpo Coast Guard where the first helicopter comes and saves someone, right? Well, another helicopter comes in to save people and they don't really ever save people because he's just a helicopter driver. He actually asked the head chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard to like get in his helicopter so that they can save people. And the chief was like, oh, I'm really tired from last night's work and I feel like the helicopter noise is going to give me a headache. So he just sent one of his officers who just circled around the ferry the whole time. And then once all of this starts getting leaked, you know what a lot of these entities do? They start deleting files, mass deleting files, and the Chindo authorities that were also involved, they actually went as far to delete all their CCTV footage from inside their government office building the day of the incident. So at first, only low-ranking officials and government officials were investigated and prosecuted. The families were enraged because, let's be real, in the hierarchical Korean society, you think this low-level intern is making the shots? Like, he's making the calls. He's like, no, we're not sending divers in. You think so? No, absolutely not. So they pushed and pushed, and in the end, President Park was facing so much heat, she announced a plan to break up and defund the Korean Coast Guard. She created a new department, but honestly, it's just a PR move. I'm sure most of the Coast Guard was moved to that new department, and the next president, President Moon, would just revive the Coast Guard in 2017, so nothing really changed. Many more arrests were made. More than 150 regulators, crew members, ship inspectors, and officials were indicted, including the captain of the Sewol Ferry.
So they deleted evidence, by the way, if y'all didn't hear that. They literally deleted footage, anything that could have been used to expose them for their incompetence.
He was charged with murder. And he said, I bow my head, and I just thought if people were leaving the ferry...
Wait, what? The captain was charged with murder?
Including the captain of the Sewol Ferry. He was charged with murder. And he said, I bow my head, and I just thought if people were leaving the ferry without the proper equipment, they would drown or drift away in the water. So that's why he told them to stay put.
Die, bitch. Fucking kill yourself.
Why the f don't you stay put then?
Yeah.
이런 지시를 받은 적이 있습니까?
기억이 없습니다.
With that much guilt and also public hate and scrutiny and a criminal trial, I would rather have died on the boat. So I just think it's so fascinating that some people have such a strong will to live that you would rather kill people to live. Nobody cared what he had to say. In the end, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment.
He would rather kill children to live.
6 years in prison instead.
What?
Yeah. He was
How
saying,
do you acquit that?
He was saying, okay, everyone is shifting, even in the criminal trials, this is crazy. Everyone is shifting blame. So he's shifting the blame and saying, yes, I shouldn't have left the boat. I shouldn't have given these orders. But ultimately, everybody died because the Coast Guard didn't rescue them. The Coast Guard is saying everybody died ultimately because they were told to stay in their cabins. So this is what they're doing. I know. This is what he looks so disgusted right now. This is what they're doing.
Wow. Like just for that, I think he deserves another life sentence on top.
Like just the audacity of these things. So there were criminal charges levied against 399 people, including the imprisonment of 154 people. 6 survivors from Tanwon High School were subpoenaed for their testimony during the criminal proceedings, and they said, a ferry with about 300 passengers, most of them students, is sinking fast. But instead of staging full-out rescue efforts, the crew members are nowhere to be seen, and the Coast Guard is just watching from afar. 30 students lined up for the emergency exit. The rescue teams didn't arrive, so we started jumping into the water. But eventually, the water got too close, and the emergency exit was no longer available to open. We were waiting to jump. We saw the Coast Guard within arm's reach. They were on the other side of that emergency exit. And we were screaming at them that we're right here, but they just watched. Parents were understandably infuriated with all of this, with all these people and entities, but there was still the problem of the missing bodies. So by the summer of 2014, more rescue teams were sent in, and bodies, at first, there were more found, and of course, it was few and further in between. But at one point, a body was found in an area that the divers already claimed that they had searched multiple times. So let's say they said they searched room B on the 3rd floor. They said, we searched that like 10 times. And then a body was found by a rescue diver in room B on the 3rd floor. So of course, it brings the question of competency of the recovery efforts yet again. Another body was found, a high school student in a bathroom that had allegedly already been searched 13 times according to official records. So what the hell is going on here? 13 times it showed that it was searched by the Coast Guard. The distrust was only growing stronger, and it's not just people, the divers that are losing the trust of the parents, but it's also the Coast Guard forensics teams. So the way that they would do it is these Coast Guard divers would dive into each room of each level and they would collect a water sample. They would bring this water sample up and then collect another water sample at the surface of the water. They would then test these water samples, and I guess there's certain bacteria or something in the water they're looking for that indicates there are human remains in that room. But if it's a match to the surface water, that means that there is no corpse in that area. So they said they checked it 13 times. The bathroom water was tested 2 to 3 times. And each time it showed that it was the same and consistent as the surface water. A volunteer diver found the girl in the bathroom. It is heavily implied that these Coast Guard divers were lazy and just collected 2 samples from the surface of the water and said one was from the bathroom down in the boat, one was from the surface water. Oh, they're a match. There's no body in there.
That is dude, I don't even know how to describe this. It's like evil. They were behaving like children, not wanting to do their homework. But these are full-grown adults just wanting to get out of doing work of rescuing children. They got 2 containers and just dipped it in the fucking ocean water. Like, oh yeah, this one's from the restroom. Oh look, they're the same. Like the water, they're testing the same. So yeah, nobody's in the restroom. So yeah, shit, let's move on.
The authorities didn't get one thing right, and the dives were getting even more dangerous. And there are actually a lot of more.
It's like they just wanted to get back to slacking off. They wanted to go back to the office and fuck around with their friends and eat noodles.
Deaths that are associated with this, that are not including like the 300 on board. A Navy officer was injured and passed away. An Undine Marine named Mr. Lee passed away during a dive, which I know that we talked badly about Undine, but that's the company, not the employee's problem. He was actually diving when he just lost contact with everyone on surface. So his colleagues went into the water. He was found dead. Yeah, his air supply cords were tangled and he was unconscious without his diving equipment on. It's not really clear what happened. An x-ray of his chest showed no irregularities, but a scan showed that his skull was filled with air. Now, a few weeks later, another civilian diver passed away. July of 2014, a helicopter from rescue operations crashed, killing all 5 officers on board and injuring a high school student. There was another death linked to the sinking that shocked a lot of people. The vice principal of Tanwon High School, Vice Principal Kang, he was found hanging from a tree near Chindo Island. So this is the island where all the parents had gathered, and it said that he was the leader of this school trip. He was in charge of the kids' safety. He was rescued, but over 250 of his students were not. He wrote in his note that he feels guilty and he wants to take responsibility for what happened. He wrote that the trip was his idea and he cannot live without knowing where his students are.
Oh, you know what? I understand him, bro. And I know that sounds like fucked up upon like first hearing that. Like he took his own life because he felt blame because the trip was that instructor's idea. If I was in his shoes, I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't say that to you and promise you that I wouldn't have done the same. Imagine the weight that you would feel on your shoulders. It's not his fault. He wanted to make a fun trip, a fun memory for these children. They're now all dead.
He wrote that the trip was his idea and he cannot live without knowing where his students are. He wrote in the letter that he wonders if he could still be their teacher on the other side. In death, he asked his ashes to be scattered around where the ferry went down. Now, the sad part is before his death, a lot of parents took their anger out on him, and so did a lot of Korean news media outlets, like a lot of adults. But when he passed, students and survivors alike, they went to his memorial in uniform and paid their respects and said he was an ethics teacher. So I wonder if it was really hard for him. He was a good person and he really cared for students. I don't think anyone should be blaming him. Again, another instance where I feel like a child is sometimes more wise than an adult. After the memorial, the hearse carrying his body circled around the school one last time. He was survived by his wife and 3 children. At least 3 parents have taken their own lives after losing their children in the Sewol ferry. One of the fathers took his life on the 1-year anniversary of the Sewol ferry tragedy. Many families have completely disintegrated, divorced, fallen into addictions, financial distress. One mom said, you just have to cry when it's hard. There's no way around it. No one, nothing can console you or help you. When I miss my son, I go lie in his bed and I hug his pillows and I smell his smell and I cry.
I think about my mom, dude. My mom, like if I passed away, I just know. I think my mom would actually take her own life. Like me and my mom are like very, very close. If I fucking died like that, I think my mom would also feel like depression. My mom would do shit like that too, probably. I mean, if she doesn't take her own life, she's gonna be in my room, in my bed. Yeah.
Most families hate spring. April is like the best season in South Korea. They hate it. One victim's mom said her husband, the victim's father, has these intense nightmares. And she said, my husband constantly has nightmares, kicking his leg, even grabbing me by the collar. And one night when I hugged him, he just let out these screams and he cried like a baby. He just looked so lonely. Many siblings of victims fell to self-harm and depression. One sister has her birthday on April 19th, and for years, it was too hard, too painful for her to even celebrate. And for the first time, she asked her parents if they would like to join her for dinner for her birthday. So it's been very rough for these families, rescue personnel, but also the survivors. Survivors' guilt is a scary, scary thing. I mean, I think it's confusing. Like, how do you even process that type of...
We were just talking about that.
A 71-year-old woman who was eating breakfast when she heard screaming. She saw people just sliding down the floor, so she grabbed a railing and saw everyone tumble like dominoes. She remembers going into shock, but this young man grabbed her arm and screamed, "Come on, hold on to me tightly." She was trying to let go and slide down with everyone because she was so exhausted. She's 71, but she's like, no, I can't hold on any longer. She said she was exhausted, but this young man never gave up on her and kept holding her arm. He grabbed her and pulled her up. He failed, so he pulled her up again, and this time it worked. He escorted her to the rescue boats, and she would not have made it out without him. She wanted to ask for his name, but it was so chaotic, he was just gone. Her 4 friends she was traveling with for like this Jeju trip, her 4 friends died. She suffered a broken back, and she said, you know, I'm grateful. I want to thank that young man. I want to buy him a meal or at least hold his hand or give him a hug. Like, what else can a lady like me do? But how could it be that an old woman like me survives and all these young people are still in there? It is such a shame. Civilians very early on realized that they were being lied to, so they tried to show their support to the parents with yellow ribbons. Even while news outlets are still lying, civilians tied yellow ribbons everywhere to show their support, to show parents, we know and we are supporting you. Since then, yellow ribbons have been used to symbolize mourning for the Sewol Ferry victims, but it's almost now become synonymous with skepticism against the government and standing up to corruption. A lot was exposed about high government officials when this case broke, like how President Park was unavailable for up to 7 hours during the initial incident. So not only was she unavailable, but her and her administration falsified schedule records to show that she was on official duties at the time, which she was not. Which, even if you're on official duties, I'm sorry, your nation's children are dying on a boat, get it together, it can wait. She just wasn't involved. I guess I don't know if she wasn't alerted, or I don't know if she wasn't making enough calls, so now all these officials are covering for her, or her administration is covering for her. Now, President Park's administration was also exposed for bullying and threatening reporters and news networks for reporting on the truth. They even indicted a Japanese reporter who shit on her for handling this tragedy in the way that she did, and Japan slammed South Korean prosecutors, and the chief cabinet secretary of Japan said, freedom of press should be respected, and that indictment was far out of the norms of the accepted wisdom in the international community. So it's clear, the president cares about her appearance domestically and oddly, very much so internationally, and that's it. And when she decided she was sick of people calling her out for her vile, disgusting behavior, she said this about the Sewol tragedy. It's time to overcome the pains and hardship from the Sewol incident and move on to build a new South Korea. We cannot stay trapped in the sadness and frustrations that have gripped us for the past year.
And I'm sorry, bro, I have to tie it to present day, because how can we look at this and not learn from these mistakes and apply it to present day? Donald Trump, he literally said shit like this. I mean, we know Donald Trump is famous for talking shit to reporters. And then he even did this same thing after a school shooting. I don't know if you guys remember. Like, he literally said that after a school shooting, like, oh, but we have to move on. And people will still really support leaders like that. Leaders like this.
At this point, stay trapped in the sadness and frustrations that have gripped us for the past year. At this point, bodies were still being recovered. Not everyone has been put to rest yet. She was later impeached for corruption. This is a big part of it. Her ratings dropped drastically after this. And shamanism, oddly, were the reasons that she was impeached. We have a video on it, but anyway, not a great person. In the end, 9 bodies were still missing in the incident, and the parents stood by each other to make sure those victims came home to be laid to rest, which would ultimately lead to the Sewol being salvaged from the bottom of the seafloor, but it took a very long time to get there. The parents requested that the Sewol ferry be salvaged immediately because evidence, the bodies are intact, like, we need to do this, right? There are speculations that the government went out of their way to come up with a million reasons on why this was impossible. It's theorized that they were scared that the evidence would show incompetence. One big thing that got a lot of people mad was that out of 172 survivors, more than half of them were rescued by fishing boats and other civilians and or commercial boats that had nothing to do with the government. One survivor said, I wonder why the rescuers who first got to the ship didn't do anything about 100 or 200, I think, were trapped inside. They were just picking up the ones at the top. Now, can we talk about the salvaging of the ferry real quick? Okay, this is crazy. 2 months, I think it was like 2 months after the sinking of the ferry, 7 private companies brought in proposals. So this happens a lot with these sometimes natural disasters, sometimes national disasters. These private companies will bring in proposals, and it was 7 maritime companies that said, hey, we have a way to salvage the ferry. This is how we're going to do it. This is option A, this is option B, this is option C, and this is how much we would charge the government to do it. Thank you. That's our proposal. It's almost like a government bid. All these companies are trying to get this deal so that they can salvage the ferry. Now, one company in particular had a very unique plan. The problem with salvaging this ferry was not, oh, let's just lift it up by cranes and then bring it ashore. It's not like that. It's so complicated because you have bodies in there. You have evidence in there. You want to keep these bodies as intact as possible. So there's a lot that you're working with, and it's in the channel, the Mangor channel, so there's a lot. So their plan was to tilt the boat onto its side again, because right now it was like inverted. Tilt it to its side, crane it onto a floating vessel, and salvage it there. That was like their plan. The government reads this proposal like 2 months after the sinking. Everyone says, when are you going to salvage the boat? They said, we have to do tests. We have to find the perfect solution. You guys, you don't understand because you don't know, but it's so hard. You know, this is in the water. It's very, very sensitive issue. We need to make sure none of the evidence gets lost.
The reason why I'm making a face right now is because I'm worried where this is going. So they're wanting to salvage the boat because obviously it's a lot of material. You know, again, these companies are, you know, they want to salvage it to use the material to recycle it for future projects, all the metal and shit. But then there's the bodies in there. So what I'm scared for is the government is maybe going to try and come up with some sneaky way to dispose of the bodies, to hide it. So once again, so that they don't look as bad to the public.
Make sure the bodies are intact. So it's going to take some time. We need to do a lot of tests. A year later, the government comes out and says, after a year of that, we have amazing news. We have found the best solution. They take credit for the solution that they had on their desks 2 months after the sinking, and they pretty much copy that proposal word for word. And that was exposed by Newstapa. Parents of victims gathered together in front of government buildings to stage a hunger strike, not for money, but for the truth. They just wanted answers on how something like this could have happened. For months, the country mourned with them. And there's a moving story about a father who ate nothing but water and salt for 46 days. The president still had some supporters, super conservatives, that came out to eat pizza and fried chicken in front of the parents who were hunger striking. I don't know why.
That's just so MAGA. I'm sorry, bro. It's just like you just want to spite the opposition no matter, just because they're the opposite side. So did you guys hear that? The opposing party, the people that support the president, came out to the people that were doing a hunger strike in order to get answers from the government. They were starving themselves. And then they go and eat fried chicken and food in front of them. It's giving White Lives Matter.
I don't know why they defended the president. Like that's your mom or something. I don't know why anyone defends any politician, regardless of what their beliefs are, so vehemently. Like, I mean, it's crazy. One parent stated, "I don't need money, compensation, or trauma therapy. I just need the truth, please. That's all." And he formally bowed in front of lawmakers, begging for them to help. Families of victims even shaved their heads in public in a demonstration. They just wanted to put their family members to rest. And the government just kept asking, "So you want compensation? No, we want you to find our family members." Finally, the ferry was salvaged 3 years later. There were 9 missing passengers at that point, and only partial remains would be found in the salvaging. Many of the victims were put to rest 1,000 days after the tragedy. But by the end of October 2018, 5 people are still missing. 2 16-year-old students, a 57-year-old teacher, a 48-year-old father, and the 7-year-old boy, remember the older brother of the 6-year-old sister? They are still missing. The families of all the victims would receive approximately $177,000 for each victim lost, which is absolutely nothing. I mean, first of all, they didn't even want it in the first place, but it's absolutely nothing. 71 days after the Sewol sinking, survivors returned to school. And before the tragedy, the sophomore class of Tanwon had 325 students. Now there were 75 in that class. All 75 were provided group therapy as part of the class time. 10 counselors were brought in to be readily available. And students at Tanwon said, "Every student here knows someone who has died or has gone missing." Like, just imagine the depth, like the web of trauma left behind.
Imagine the atmosphere. They went from 300 plus students, right, in the class to only 75. Like, imagine the atmosphere going back to school. Every student knew somebody that had either died or was only pronounced missing.
It says, "Our school feels so empty now. It's not an environment where we can study. I wake up every morning hoping it's a lie, but it's not." And I will say that when tragedy does strike, Korea is a nation that at least the civilians come together. The government, wow, but the civilians do come together in honor of the Sewol tragedy. All K-pop groups, every single one, stopped the release of all new music and promotions. The whole entertainment industry was at a standstill. Most industries in South Korea were at a standstill. There were no ads, no promotions for anything. And once the mourning period was over, BTS came back with a song called Spring Day, directly inspired by Sewol. The translated lyrics read, "I miss you even though I'm looking at your photo. Time is a cruel thing. I want to go to the other side of the earth holding your hand. How long do I have to wait? How many nights do I have to pass to see you, to meet you? Until spring day comes again, until the flowers bloom again. Please stay here a little longer."
I heard BTS was like well known for always addressing kind of heavy subjects. Yeah.
Artist dedicated his concert to a fan that had purchased tickets to be there, but she passed on the Sewol ferry. A family member of one of the victims was asked, "Why do you think this happened? Why do you think the kids weren't saved?" And he said, "People ask that all the time. Why do you think they failed to protect the children?" And I think above all, they just had no desire to protect the children. Golden time? All they did was lie. What are your thoughts on this case?
Very heavy, very emotional case. Fuck, man. I want to say meaner things, but I mean, South Korea is a better place today. No, man, but it's just like crazy though. Wait, now that I'm thinking about it, didn't South Korea have another accident fairly recently with that? You guys remember the airplane incident? It was like last year or 2 years ago. Yeah, in Jeju. Yeah, the same thing, Jeju. Is that not crazy to y'all? All of this lack of safety in South Korea. That ship that we just saw with the 350 students died going to Jeju. And this airplane incident that happened in 2024, last year, only 1 year ago, happened in Jeju.
Passenger jet touched down in Muon, South Korea. The belly of the jet skidding on the tarmac before it slams into a concrete wall, exploding into a fireball.
South Korea, bro. What the are y'all doing? Yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching. But see, I mean, like, look at that. Rest in peace to those people too. No, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm just too angry right now.